I just want to repeat this again because I think it's a very important thing for people to understand. There's a distinction between the thermometer and the thermostat, and we had this conversation when we were away, and it hit me, it touched me. See, a lot of people can come in the room, the thermometer tells you what the temperature is. Very few people can come in the room and are thermostats that change the temperature. There's so much I could say about this brother as a beloved leader of African Americans, and also as a beloved friend. But we all know the wonderful work this man has done, and he's going to give us the time to discuss any and everything you and I want to ask, brother, and also the callers. Without further ado, I introduce the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show.
Brother Mtume, thank you. And to all of your listeners, I wish you peace. And to Bob Slade, who is absent this morning, we pray that Almighty God, Allah, will bless you with a speedy recovery so you can get back to these microphones and feed the public as you have been doing for so many years.
Indeed.
I'm honored beyond words to be here with my family at KISS FM.
Well, let me ask you a question about leadership, and certainly your leadership over the last 15 years, especially in organizing the Million Man's March and the Millions More Movement March, I think is an example of the quality of your leadership, as well as the vision of that, the best possible folks coming forward to provide that leadership to us.
I think the best of us is yet to come. The best of us is like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught me once. He said, there's a force in the universe that in the darkness a star is being born. And you can't see it, but then that force that's in the darkness will bring that star into view. What that is telling us is we are never bereft of leadership. When leaders fail us, or when good leaders die, that same force that is in the universe that makes new stars and brings them into a view will bring new leadership into view. And new leadership is required among black people because there is a sickness in our leadership. I don't want to put myself apart from them, except that I do that sets me apart. I will not place myself beyond our brothers and sisters in leadership, because none of us have done all that we should or all that we could. But having said that, there is a sickness, a disease in black leadership. Let me give you an example.
Yes, sir.
Mother Coretta Scott King, a woman that sacrificed much for us as the wife of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The children of Mrs. King, willingly or unwillingly, paid a tremendous price. Sometimes we are ungrateful to those who have suffered to make life better for each and every one of us. But when Mother King passed, Harry Belafonte, our esteemed brother, who did so much to help Dr. King, who did so much to back the family, was disinvited to share a word from that platform on behalf of Mother King, because he had made some disparaging remarks against President Bush. And now Bush was coming, Clinton was coming, Carter was coming, white folks were coming. So we could disrespect one of our own because of this sickness in us that if they don't approve of us, we do not approve of one another. That leadership, that quality of leadership that will only keep their hand in our hand as long as we don't step out of line with white folk. That quality of leadership must be overthrown, and a quality of leadership must arise that will never disrespect and be ungrateful to the masses of black people and never compromise principle because the former slave masters and their children are in the house. Brother Akbar said there's a syndrome among black people. No matter what we say or what we do, we respond like this. I wonder what Massa gonna think about that. That's a Negro syndrome. So black leaders can't speak as forcefully as they could or they should because I wonder what Massa gonna think about that. Oh Lord have mercy. Massa giving us money. And Lord, if I say too much, Massa gonna stop giving me money. So I can't talk like I know I should talk. And that's why they, like Nicodemus, they can meet Jesus in the dark, in the back, and say, I'm with you, brother. But when it comes to leading our people, they can only take us so far. And that's why that young cadre of leadership, those stars that are being born in the darkness, they must rise now and come forth without the poison of loving others more than you love yourself and wanting to please others before you please yourself.
Another part,
And God will never violate his word as these false people have promised us. And lastly, when my brother Tavis held up two papers, one a letter from the leader of the Republican National Committee, one from the leader of the Democratic National Committee. These were words from persons who are a part of the liars, the deceivers, who have promised us. And what I said in my few minutes, you're not dealing with the real powers. That man can give you a promise that he can't fulfill because there are powers behind him that can undermine anything that he says. Go to the White House and get a promise from the president. He's not the power in America. He's a front man for power. So when you don't know who you're dealing with, you take the lies and deceit of these people into your heart. I am telling you, black America, don't you believe the false promises of your former slave masters and their children. And that's why the Bible says we war not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and the rulers of the darkness of this world and spiritual wickedness that is in high places. And none of us are sitting down with those boys that pull those strings. So any promise made by anyone else, don't pay it any mind.
All right, let's go. Let's stay out in New Jersey and let's speak with Ken. Good morning, Ken. You're on open line.
Yes, brothers. Thank you, Brother Minister, for being here today. And also, too, I have to disagree with you about the book, The Covenant, because the book, I read the book, and it still relies too much on the government, okay? I mean, at the end of every chapter, it states, you know, go to your local official, okay? And to me, it's still looking towards the government. And I called in the day after Tavis appeared on the show. That day, rather, when Tavis appeared. And it seemed to me Tavis' anger carried on to the next day about after you appeared. It seemed that, you know, they wasted 20 minutes of time to basically disallow what you had just said at the State of the Black Union. And also, we as a people, I think we have to unite with the African people around the world. Okay, I think we need a membership in the African Union. Okay, I think, you know, African Americans deserve a right, a voice to speak on an international level. We have to take that voice to the African Union and let it speak for us, and let other African leaders, okay, help us in our cause here. And also, too, the 8th Pan-African Congress is in Harare, Zimbabwe this year in October. Will you be attending? And do you suggest that we attend?
all right,
Thank you, brother. No, I'm in total agreement with you. See, that's the weakness of the book. The covenant spells out clearly our condition, but it also spells out our impotence because we're relying on the same people that have deceived us all along. And that's why I say we have to make a covenant with God, because he never breaks his promise. If we rely on God and rely on the best within ourselves, then we can solve this problem. Now, dear brother, yes, I have been to the African Union. I was there when it was being formed, and I hope to we've pressed them for observer status with the African Union, and I think we will be there with our brothers and sisters in Africa when they have their next meeting, hopefully sometime in July. I would advise you, yes, go to Harare. It's time to stand by President Mugabe. And it's a wonderful thing that the 8th Pan-African Congress will be held there because he's under fire. Remember, Mugabe was the darling of the Commonwealth nations as long as he let white folk keep the land. But when they impressed upon him, look, President Mugabe, you and Joshua Nkomo, you fought to take the land back because the land belongs to the people. And just before he was to win and take over, they invited him to London and they made a deal, and in that deal they were going to buy back the land of the whites, and then they reneged on their promise. And then after 20 years or so, the soldiers came and said, look, man, this is not what we fought for. So he began to take the land away from the whites and reapportion it to the blacks, and that's when the Commonwealth got on him, and now he's the bad boy, and they're working to destroy that man. So all the support we can give to Brother Mugabe is what we should do. Thank you for your question.
Mr. Farrakhan, when we come back after this break, I want to follow up on that same question about our relationship to Africa and ask you about the Sudan and the Darfur issue. You're listening to Open Line. We're with Minister Louis Farrakhan. Stay tuned. Call up people. Let them know he's on the air. We'll be right back. What's your take on what's going on in Sudan and the atrocity that's occurring in Darfur, and the fact that the black community here and the black leadership seems not to be embracing that issue?
First, my brother, when we were called Negroes, we did not have an international presence. The Honorable Marcus Garvey tried to give us an international presence, and of course he was very successful, but the government feared an international presence. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad single-handedly turned us from Negroes to accepting ourselves no matter what shade of color we were, due to the Willie Lynch syndrome and the going in and out of our women by our former slave masters and their children, that gave us all these different shades, and then they divided us by these shades. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad asked us to refer to ourselves as the black man, the original people of the earth. And when we saw ourselves as black people, then every person of color on the earth, we identified with them. So in the 60s, nothing could happen on the African continent that black people in America were not concerned with. Nothing could happen in the Caribbean or in Brazil or in Central America or in the islands of the Pacific, where black people were concerned, that we didn't feel them, because a nervous system was being created for black people, that we felt the pain of one another wherever we were on the earth. But after Malcolm was assassinated and Martin was assassinated and Elijah Muhammad was gone, notice the shift in language. We were no longer black. In New York City, there were several black shows. There was Black News. Was there Positively Black? There was the national program with Tony Brown called Black Journal.
Right.
After the death of these giants, now the wise people said, let's change the language so we can change their focus and give them a new understanding of who they are. So subtly, there was no more Black News, no more Positively Black. Black Journal became Tony's Journal. And all over America, wherever black was describing that program, Black Star in Baltimore, that left. And then the new language was the minority, the disadvantaged. Then came African American. And what was happening is a severing of the nervous system that black had made, tying us to the struggle of black people all over the world. So now there can be a Darfur. Who cares? That's not us. There can be a Rwanda and Burundi. Who cares? That's not us. So we don't feel suffering until there's a Katrina. Oh, that's us. But what's going on in Haiti, that's not us. What's going on in Brazil, in Costa Rica, in Colombia, in Nicaragua, in Guatemala, that is not us. So the language shift. Now let's go to Darfur. If you notice, on the mall, 95% of those who were present were Caucasian. I'm not going to denigrate their sensitivity to suffering, but the reason that blacks were not there is because the blacks who could make something happen were never invited. It's not that black people don't care about Darfur, but Darfur, on the scale of suffering in the world, pales. Because now I heard there were 180,000 dead, from that to 400,000, okay? 2 million displaced. But in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, 3.5 million have died. No talk. In northern Uganda, with the Lord's Resistance Army and the walking at night for the children trying to run away so that they would not be kidnapped and made to fight against the government in Kampala. No talk. Why Sudan? For the last 15 years, Sudan has been on the agenda for regime change. Regime change because Sudan housed Palestinian resistance fighters. Sudan housed Osama bin Laden and put him out. But Sudan is an Islamist regime that is against the state of Israel. Now let's stop there for a moment. See, now they said, well, these are some Arabs in the Sudan enslaving Africans. So naturally, this is the language of Arabs enslaving Africans. This is so clever, and the media pushes that so that there would come a natural hatred of blacks for Arabs, so that Arabs look like the real culprits here. Well, you don't know this, but I and my national, international representative, Akbar Muhammad, who's in the studio with me, who I want to speak on this in just a few moments, he and I were together on a peace mission. Listen to me carefully now. How many years ago was that, Brother Akbar? Over 10 years ago, wasn't it?
It was 1994.
1994, 12 years ago. Now, I went to Ghana and spoke with then President Jerry John Rawlings. And Rawlings said, if you want to help ease the crisis, get in touch with Kenneth Kaunda, the former president of Zambia. We got in touch with Kenneth Kaunda, and he said he would accompany us. And so we went to Kenya and met with President Arap Moi, who at that time was over that group of nations that were working for peace. What is it?
IGAD.
IGAD, E-G-A-D. So when we met with President Moi, he sent us to Uganda, where we met with President Museveni. But the most important meeting was a meeting with Brother John Garang, who for 20 years was fighting the government in Khartoum. Now, why was there a fight? Was it over slavery? Akbar, you were with me. At no time during our talk with John Garang, which was 4 hours in length, was there ever a mention of slavery.
Right, never mentioned.
But when I mentioned the word justice, then John Garang's wife broke down and cried and said that I was the only person who came that talked about justice. Now, what was the injustice? The Arabs have mixed their blood with the Africans that live in the north. They are Arabized and Islamic. And the same racist poison that has poisoned the bloodstream of Islam has made the Arab North feel superior to the Christian animist African South. The South is black, 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 so black till there's blue in their color. So when you have, like the enemy has done to us, when you're lighter, you think you're better than your black brother or sister. And in New Orleans, when I just left there, they told me about the brown bag, that if you walked in a place and you couldn't pass the brown bag test, meaning your color was darker than the bag that you carry your liquor in, you couldn't go in certain places. And in Washington, D.C., y'all know that there was an elitist attitude among light-skinned black people against dark-skinned black people. The same game that the enemy has played here and in Africa. Now he's dominating that scene now in Sudan. Now look at the Sudan. It's the largest landmass country, I think.
That's right.
On the African continent. If it were fully developed, it could feed all of Africa. In the south, there's an abundance of oil. And if you remember in Nigeria, in the eastern part of Nigeria, they wanted to break that part off years ago and call it Biafra. And it ignited a civil war. And the civil war was to unite that which gave them power, because there was a regime in Lagos that the government of America and Britain did not like. Now what you got in the West, Brother Akbar, tell the audience, because I sent Brother Akbar there to look into the situation in Darfur, and James M. Toomey went himself. Tell them about the Janjaweed, tell them about the government, tell them about the farmers, tell them about the herders, tell them what is really happening on the ground there, and then we'll come back to why no black people were there on that mall.
Yes, Brother Minister, with your permission, first, thank you very much. I'd like to say to the audience, you know, we have a saying, when there's darkness, stand still. And most black people in America did not participate because the cloud that was around it that they really didn't understand. And then they were not invited in mass. They tried to get some to come. So the standing still is because they've heard so many different things. One of the things I want to start off where the minister left off at, when that peace accord was signed in the South, immediately this conflict broke out in the West. Now, until the last 5 days, most people in America knew nothing about the rebel group that started all of this. They had a peace accord in Abuja. The Sudanese government said that they would sign. The rebels first resisted. Bush sent the deputy secretary of state there to force the rebels. Now, how could you force the rebels to sign unless you got some clout with them, or were you supplying them with money and weapons and so forth, and you told them that this is what you have to do at that time? But the tragedy is that if you look at the government in Khartoum, now whenever we look at the world and you talk about a government, Brother Minister, if you talked about Iraq during the time of Saddam Hussein, they'd show his picture. If you talked about Syria, they would show Assad. If you talked about Saudi Arabia today, they would show King Abdullah. If you talk about Egypt, they would show Mubarak. They've talked about the Sudan, but if I asked an audience across this country, what does the president of the Sudan look like? Most people do not know. He just went to Iran to meet with the leader of Iran, and very little information showing him in a picture with him, because he is as black as Akbar or either blacker. So he doesn't fit the script of the Arab who's killing Africans. Last week, the Washington Post published the 5 facts about Darfur. One of them on there that was blaring, and Mtumi, you can bear witness to this, is that all of the people are black. So if you talk about Arabs killing Africans, Mtumi, you went into a room when you were there. I went into the same room, and the man said, would the Arab tribe leaders stand up, that include the ones that are called Janjaweed? And when they stood up, they were all black. He said, now will the African tribes stand up? And they were all black. And so everybody, we looked at each other, because the picture in America is that these white Arabs are killing Africans. And the brother said clearly, what makes them the Arabs, they only speak Arabic, and they're herders, or you would call nomads. They do herding. What makes them Africans is they speak an African language and Arabic. They're all Muslims. And so they've had this clash for 500 years. This conflict with the rebels exacerbated it because the government did go in and form a militia. And this militia was not to make people suffer in murder and rape, but it was to root out the rebels who had taken shelter among the villagers and the people. And this picture is not seen in America.
Yeah, that's a good history lesson.
Well,
And
if I could just finish that point. You see, when you see Senator Tom Lantos leading the march on the Sudanese embassy, when you see Elie Wiesel, these are Zionists. These are pro-Israeli Zionists. Why are they leading the march? Do you really think that they have compassion for what is going on in Darfur? See, human suffering is human suffering. Don't tell me you have compassion for the blacks that are suffering in Darfur and you got Palestinians suffering under your nose and you don't care nothing about that? Come on. If there's 3.5 million dying in the Congo, you say nothing about that? The people that are dying in Uganda, you say nothing about that? No. Then what is the motive sitting up under this? This is what black people have to look at. It is that there's oil in the West, there's gold,
Uranium.
there's uranium, and there's a 500-year fight. Like the early plains, you know, if I was a cattle rancher, you know, and you were a sheep herder, and we didn't like the sheep herders, and there's a fight between the cattle ranchers, the sheep herders. Then the railroad comes in, and they start taking the land. So all these boys fighting each other in early American history. This is what's going on in Darfur, and the mistake that the government made. But sincere, they saw these herders that were going to fight against the rebels, and they armed them. But then that 500-year-old hatred that's in them took precedence over rooting out the rebels, and the massacre began and so forth. So what I say to black people, you know, when the former slave masters who didn't care about lynching, who didn't care about our suffering, who don't care about what happened in Katrina, don't you be deceived that they care about what's happening over there and they don't care what's happening to us here. If you can promote black people calling black women bitches and whores and have no thought about that, you can promote gangster life, guns and drugs, and you have no thought about that, yet the black community is dying as we speak. How in the hell can I think you're concerned about Darfur when we are dying in Harlem and in Brooklyn and the south side of Chicago? Stop it. Black people, wake up to the deceit. We are not there because we were not invited, and that was not our party.
We're going to take a quick break.
We're going to go to line 3. We have Sanatari. Is that the correct way of pronouncing your name?
Sister Sanatari.
Sanatari, excuse me. Good morning. You're on open line.
all right,
Good morning.
Sanatari, what's your question for the minister?
First of all, I would like to say Assalamu alaikum, Brother Minister.
Wa alaikum salam, sister.
And my question is, me being a sister in the Nation of Islam, and we know that we have the MGT class, and with the plight of our sisters here in America today, I want to know, what can you say to the sisters to kind of motivate them, so to say, to better ourselves?
Yes.
We know that we have the MGT, but for our sisters out there that we speak with every day, I wanted you to say something to them
Thank
to
you, sister. Thank
kind
you.
of help them along.
Thank you.
you.
To our sisters who are listening, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said to us, where there are no decent women, there are no decent men, for the black woman is the mother of civilization. You don't judge the civilization by the men. You judge civilization and the depth of that civilization, the greatness of that civilization, by the woman. when you have women that are denied education, when you have women that are denied the right to express the greatness that God has put within them, then when you suppress and oppress women, you suppress and oppress yourself. When you exalt a woman, you exalt a nation. You know, when they talk about these Muslims who are martyrs, they said, boy, these Muslims want to die because they're going to paradise and there'll be 70 virgins. And these people want to die to get to those virgins. But my dear brothers and sisters, look, the Bible teaches that a virtuous woman is more priceless than silver and gold. The Quran is giving us a picture of paradise. A man surrounded by 70 virgins. The number 7 means infinity. When you are surrounded by virgins, you are surrounded by virtuous women. And when you're surrounded by virgins, then there is no adultery, there's no fornication, so you're in a heavenly state because the women are honored and respected and their virtue is honored and respected. That's not talking about dying to see that kind of life. But if we lived on this earth when this world is removed and the kingdom of God is established, you will see virgins, you will see virtuous women, you will see men who love and respect their women, you will see highly educated, motivated women, and then you will know, as the Bible says, a wise child maketh a glad father, but a foolish child is the heaviness of its mother. So rise up, black women, come away from the foolishness of the television and immerse yourself in seeking knowledge. For the greater you are, the greater will be what you produce from your womb. May God bless you.
Okay, let's go to East Harlem and speak with Melvin. Good morning, Melvin. You're on open line.
But, sir, my question is to you is the dilemma that I'm facing in my thinking now in regards to, immigration. Not too long ago, Reverend Sharpton and Reverend Jackson went to Mexico to confront President Fox on his statement that they were coming here and they were doing jobs that even, and I put that in quotes, that even blacks won't do.
I'm not a defender of Vicente Fox, but see, he knows, looking from the outside, that black people are considered the permanent underclass in the United States of America. This is a man looking at the racial situation in America from the outside.
Yes,
and, you know, Reverend Al Sharpton or Jesse Jackson or Bruce Gordon or Louis Farrakhan, we are not the rule, we are like the exception. So when you look at the masses of black people, he says, well, my people are taking jobs that even the permanent underclass will refuse to accept. Now, none of us will go out in the hot sun and pick the fruits and vegetables that the Mexicans wish to do. They're great landscapers, but they are taking jobs that we would love to do. And if you go all across America, you see road construction going on. Very few blacks are on those jobs, but the construction people are hiring Mexicans. In the house building boom, we would love to be a part of that, but they hire Mexicans because we now became part of the union. And as part of the union, that meant that we would get higher salary and wage considerations. My dear, dear brothers and sisters, Pharaoh has let you go. But it is you that don't want to go. Years ago, it was Hattie McDaniel's type that was the maid, the butler, and all of that. You go now, go see the movie Sentinel. When the rich man's house is open, it's a fat Mexican woman, it's a fat Latino that's the butler. We are no longer present. And I'm telling you, Pharaoh has dropped you. So in my conclusion, The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, when the sea takes a body down and destroys it, it gives that body up to the surface so that the loved ones may claim that body. And if no one claims that body, then the sea destroys it. White folk have let us go, except for the few that are in corporate America, the few that can fit in this society. But the sea now has given us up, like Pharaoh said, all right, Moses, take your people and go. And when Moses was getting ready to take them, Pharaoh had a new thought. He said, no, send the army and kill them. And that's what's going on right now. As we speak, they've let you go. The sea has given you up, but you are not claiming yourself, and it looked like nobody is claiming you, so the sea is taking us down, and the government has said, wipe them out. We are on a death march right now.
Minister Farrakhan?
We're 20 years since the Million Man March. And I know we're going back to Washington 10-10-15. When you look at those 20 years, how far have we come? What's the difference between those 2 decades and us going back to Washington? What will the purpose and what will we try to accomplish from going back to Washington 10-10-15?
The Million Man March accomplished many different things. We didn't go there to petition government. We went there to atone for our lack of acceptance of responsibility as men for our women and our children. We are the natural leaders of our community. But when the enemy brought us into slavery, one of the things that he did and was successful at doing was breaking the black man. And once you are a conquered man, a broken man, then your woman is the booty or the prize of the conqueror. So he had freedom to break us, but then to introduce himself to our women. So my color started coming up, and light skin. Then they put the light against the dark, and the curly hair against the kinky hair, and one who lived on the hill, the one in the valley. You know, the Willie Lynch thing.
Yes, sir.
So now we at the Million Man March began to accept that responsibility. We sent black men first, join a church, a mosque, a synagogue, a place where spiritual values is being taught, because we need that. Second, join an organization of your choice that is working for the liberation of our people. And third, register to vote, that our vote may make a difference. Well, I got a call from SCLC that their phones were ringing off the hook, black men joining. Black men started joining the church. Black men increased membership in the mosques, both what you call Orthodox Islam and the followers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in the Nation of Islam. 25,000 orphans were given a home through the Million Man March. And many black men went back home and began to become mentors, entrepreneurs. And so that was a blessing. But the enemy said, oh man, if these black men stay in the kind of unity that we saw at the Million Man March, they'll be powerful enough to change the reality of their lives. And so after that, I went to Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. And what our people don't know, they treated me as if I were a head of state. They were so happy that they saw the Million Man March which this had never been before. Nearly 2 million black men standing together, shoulder to shoulder, brother to brother. No swearing, no smoking, no drinking, no crime. Just peace on that day. They were mesmerized by what God had blessed us to produce. And so I told them, as I moved through the country for 2 years building, I said, don't you bring no weapon to the Million Man March, because I want to introduce you to the power of the Spirit of God when we are all together in love and accord and agreement with one another. And sure enough, the Spirit was so thick at the Million Man March that it really caught fire all over the earth. So when I went to Egypt, when I went to Sudan, when I went to all the other countries of Africa, they came out and said, man, we see the power of our kith and kin in America. And they were expecting us to become so powerful that we could influence the foreign policy of our government toward the third world. And unfortunately, we now have taken a backward step. We're not as strong as we could be. We're not as strong as we should be.
Why is that?
Because what I would call social engineering. When I was a young man, many years ago, I saw black men in my community in Roxbury, Massachusetts, going out in the morning to work with a little lunch pail. And I would see them when I came home from school, coming back from work. There was a family. There was church. There was community. There was school that we went to, and we became a family. We had gangs then, the gang on the hill, the gang in town, and we would fight sometimes, but never would we kill one another. But now, 40 years ago, I was in Africa, and when I came back, I read in the paper that the wise scientists of America were saying, don't invest in the inner cities because the inner cities are about to explode. So instead of investment in the inner cities, where there always were factories for unskilled laborers to be able to have a job, it wasn't a lot of money, but it was enough that we could have a decent quality of life that kept the family together. Then all of a sudden, factories closed down. Factories moved out of the inner cities and moved into foreign labor markets. Then we were left in the lurch if we didn't know how to create jobs for ourselves. We have educated people, but we allow others to come into our community to service our needs. And we have a barbecue pit over here, a little nightclub over here, or a little eatery over there. But the real money that is needed to invest in the inner cities is not there. So now, in the inner cities, they call it a food desert, that no good food is being given to the people in the hood. Now you have Mexicans that are here. They're a little wiser, not as broken as we are. So you will see the Mexican stores. You will see 5 or 10 of our brothers and sisters from Mexico come. They come together, they live in a house, they pool their resources. The next thing you know, they bought the house next door, the house across the street, the house down the street. Then you see businesses in the Mexican community. And now the Mexicans, they are very thrifty and they're hardworking. So now they want to pit the Mexican against the black and the black against the Mexican. Here we are, two members of the original family of the earth. And the enemy got us looking at each other as the enemy. Now, you know, brother, you are not going to pick the fruit like our brothers and sisters from Mexico. You're not going to be in the vineyard like they are picking the grapes. You're going to pass that according to your thinking. So these are your brothers and sisters. So today, we feel it's necessary that we march, not march, but gather in Washington. And when we say justice or else, that's exactly what we mean. Because our Latino family wants justice. Justice because California was once theirs. New Mexico and Arizona were once theirs. Texas was once theirs. Colorado, parts of it were once theirs. So now they're called undocumented aliens. When the undocumented alien is the man that stole the country from the native people and from those who were here before they arrived. So here we are now. We didn't come here as an immigrant. We weren't looking for something that the immigrants came looking for. We came in the holds of ships. And now we built the country. The country is rich because of our slave labor for 310 long years, being sold from plantation to plantation. So most of our people, conquered people, we wear the names of our oppressor. We're not English, but we speak English. So we wear English name. And to our Latino family, you are not Spanish, but you speak Spanish. Because we were enslaved by a European called us Spain, and a European called England, and a European called French or France, or a European called the Dutch, or a European called Belgium, or a European called Portuguese. All these languages called Romance languages belong to the European that they imposed on the people that they conquered. It's time now for all of us who have been the victims of tyranny and oppression to see our relationship to each other come together in a solid wall of unity, then address the government. And the government will have to bow because our unity will be more powerful, as Elijah Muhammad taught, than an atomic or hydrogen bomb.
Minister, when I fast forward to after 20 years, it seems like, where are our leaders now? You know, I see that you're coming out, you're speaking to a lot of us in radio, but sometimes we're like, okay, well, we'll let this person do it. We'll let this person do it. There's a voice that's either hip hop, that's celebrity driven. Do you feel like there is a purpose and we need to step up even more so to get the word out? Hip hop community, pop, whatever it is, the celebrities.
You are the most powerful community in the world, called hip hop. The rappers don't understand the extreme value of their craft. Now, T.D. Jakes is one of the greatest preachers, Creflo Dollar and others. They make wonderful preachings, and they are listened to and admired. But one rap from a rap star, he has more followers than many of the preachers combined. Rappers have followers all over the world, and their followers are the most intriguing part of the demographics, it's the young people. 9, 10, 11, 12, 15, 20, 25, 35. This is the power force of the nation. So how do you use the youth?
Now, we were speaking briefly just about hip hop, our voice, the young, the people that we communicate with. Now we got social media where you could just press send and your message go out all over the world. When we get into the booth, or when I turn that microphone on in radio, or rappers get in the booth, or someone goes to sing, even with social media, do we have a responsibility that you feel when we step in to do our jobs, knowing that we're speaking to many people around the world? Do we have more of a responsibility that we kind of overlook?
Yes, brother. All of us who have influence in the lives of others have a responsibility to measure that influence wisely and use it wisely. The airwaves are sacred, because when you go up on the bird and you go in to the homes and hearts of people, that's a sacred commitment, because the mind is what you're feeding through the ear. That's why the Bible says, he that hath ears, let him hear. Because the ear is the entry point for the word to enter, to begin to stimulate the consciousness of the mind. So the edutainment that came from the early rappers that were literally teaching black history in a rap with a beat. So the young people, which they tell you when we go to school, we don't have a span of interest that is beyond 5 or 6 minutes. But when you see these babies in front of the TV, they're staying there for hours playing games. It's that the education that they're being offered does not grab their mind and hold that mind and discipline that hand and foot, that they will listen and learn. Because what they're being taught is literally, garbage. So if I take a picture of you and me, or they take a picture and they show the picture to you and to me, who would you look for first? You'd look for yourself. I would look for myself. Then I'd look to see my brother. Oh, big boy looking good.
Yes, sir.
But when I go to school, I don't see myself in the education. So I'm not interested. You're going to tell me about George Washington. What did he do for me? You're going to tell me about Abe Lincoln. All your great white heroes. They're good to learn about, but they're not good for me. We have black heroes that gave wisdom to the world while the whites were in the hills and cave sides of Europe. You don't teach us about that because you want us to forever be dependent, begging you, groveling at your feet, and worshiping you as though you are a God beside God. So yes, we got a responsibility. And Brother Big Boy, let me say this. When the enemy saw that our children were getting knowledge through rap, the whites that began to own the prisons, I heard, met with the record executives in Hollywood. And the offer that they were given was this. The people that began to build private prisons. You don't build a prison not expecting occupancy.
Right.
So who's going to occupy the prison? The occupants of the prison was to be the black, the brown, the poor white. How can you get them into the prison? When you take away the jobs, then my brother Freeway Rick, who may be here, a great brother, he was introduced to cocaine, crack cocaine, but he didn't know that it was under the Bush administration when he was CIA head, and they wanted to stop the march of socialism in Central America. And the U.S. Congress would not give Reagan the money to do that. Under Reagan, Bush as his CIA man, they started bringing coke, marijuana, but mainly coke from out of Central and South America, bringing it into America, treating it. Now this is chemical warfare. So when we smoke the crack rock in the pipe, it goes immediately to the pleasure center of your brain. So with 1 or 2 hits, you are caught. And now that you can't get out of it, you spread it. So rock, crack, cocaine, now by Congress was given a heavier sentence than powdered cocaine. Now think about this. Then Bill Clinton, you know the boy that plays the sax, and you thought he was your first black president? He admitted the other day and asked almost for forgiveness for putting so many black brothers and sisters in prison over drugs, and 3 strikes, you're out. Now, I don't know why he apologized a few weeks ago. Maybe it's because his wife, Hillary, is running, and he wants to clear that kind of deck so Hillary can get the benefit of our vote. But I remember you, Miss Clinton. I remember you when my brother, Barack Obama, was trying to be the first black president, and you jumped in the race against him. And then you forced him by bringing up my name and telling him that he should denounce or renounce me. And you kept pushing him until he did. And some of those who loved me said, we're not going to vote for that man. And I told him, leave him alone. Vote for him, because it really wasn't him. You should look at those who were behind him to push him in that direction. And now it's your turn, Miss Clinton. And I remember what you did to my brother, Muammar Gaddafi, a man that built a country, a man that had a revolution that brought his country into prominence, a man that spent billions of dollars helping Africa to put up a satellite where our telephone calls to Africa didn't have to go through Europe anymore. They could go direct to our satellite down to Africa, which cut out $500 million a year that used to go to Europe. I remember you. And you made my brother talk up to Muammar Gaddafi and give him terms that he had to get out of Libya. Get out for what? He built a country that had no debt. And here you are, nearly $18 trillion in debt. And the only thing back in America right now is her military might and her willingness to threaten the nations of the earth who she borrowed money from. And if China called in the loans, and if Japan and other Europeans called in the loan, your government would collapse. Don't look at this as something that Farrakhan is just saying. This is a political season. And if the politicians don't answer the question of justice, you shouldn't give them your vote. You got to press them. Don't let them talk out of both sides of their mouth. You press them on what justice is for us. And if they don't respond to that properly, maybe then we should think about something else. Because both Democrats and Republicans, both of them, have been our enemies. So we'll see what you do this year. It's justice or else.
I want to circle back to, once again, just with hip hop, and the reason why I go there is because we have a lot of soldiers, we have a lot of great voices, we have a lot of people that have followers, not just in the States but worldwide, and it's wild because we have a voice that sometimes I even sit down and I do radio, Minister Farrakhan, and I'm like, am I using my voice and my microphone for the right purpose? And in hip hop today, I love what's going on. I love the attention. I love what feels like the ownership, which, you know, we could argue this. A lot of people could beg to differ. But do you feel like with hip hop, once again, that responsibility, that where do you see hip hop right now with the voices and the soldiers? And is there a call to order that Minister Louis Farrakhan would like to see?
I would like to see artists for justice. Kendrick Lamar recently put out a beautiful rap, very intelligent. Kanye West. I met in this city with Snoop and Busta Rhymes, and we talked about how wisdom put in rap with the kind of beat that some of these young people are coming up with, that drives the word into the consciousness of the people. You could take the young. See, this is why Jesus said, you shall know the truth, man, and the truth shall set you free. So I said to Snoop, why don't you make a rap? Because I'm finishing up my album now, and Snoop went and brought back a rap called Let's Change the World. Man, it was so great, so intelligent, so wise, so well done by Brother Snoop, that I was so impressed, I made his song the title of the entire album, Let's Change the World. And that's what hip hop has the power to do. You're brilliant, you're craftsman. Have you heard of Loaded Lux?
Yes, oh yes, oh yes.
I was in New York,
Yes.
and Lux came to meet me, and we hugged and embraced each other, because I heard him rap. Now this man is a genius. He just stand up and spit it. And man, he whooped everybody.
Yes, sir.
And so I said, brother, we got to get this work in. And he said, we sure do. Look, brother, we're a team.
Yes, sir.
The rap artists are the new leaders of the youth of the world.
So you don't denounce nor are you mad at today's rapper. It's like,
no, no, because they were given an offer of money to change into gangster rap. So as we changed into gangster rap and we started promoting the gun, they started feeding the guns into the inner cities, because they know we wasn't going to use the gun to shoot them. So we started shooting each other. So the Crips and the Bloods were added, and the police departments and others were sponsoring our killing each other. But today, what happened in Baltimore? See, when they said the young rappers and gang leaders came together and said that they were not going to fight each other, that's when they sent out a bulletin to police departments all over America saying that the rappers and the gangbangers have come together to take on the police. They didn't say that, but white folk knew that if we stop killing each other, they're going to have to stop killing us, or the guns will turn in another direction.
Hashtag justice.
What you
or
say?
Else.
Hashtag justice or else. Or what's the other one? justiceorelse.com. Let's come together, brothers and sisters. We don't have to fire a shot. We don't have to throw a Molotov cocktail. We don't have to act in a way that will bring down the wrath of these mechanized armies on ourselves. But if we are united, you and I, all of us, come together for justice, just like the rain fell in Texas. These were little raindrops that just came together and created a flood. Little snowflakes came together, and the planes couldn't fly. The tanks couldn't roll. That's what your unity will do. And when they see our unity on October 10th, 10/10/15.
Yes, sir.
When you see our unity that day, we want to connect with our Hispanic family, with our Native American family, with the family of the poor and the black, and those who's lost their lives for police brutality and our insane killing of one another, coming together to stop the violence in the inner city and press our government to intercede to make sure that we put an immediate end to police brutality and mob attacks. It's justice or else.
At Louis Farrakhan on Twitter. If you could look into this camera and let us know, what do we do from here on? We're in an election year. We got social media. We got eyes and ears. We're now in a position where we're turning the cameras on those that had cameras on us. If you could look into this camera and tell us, what is our next move or moves from now to our March on Washington 10/10/15 to eternity?
Thank you, brother. First, I can't tell you how much I am in love with your spirit.
Thank you.
And I pray that God will continue to bless you and this program with continued success.
Thank you.
We have to start this war because we are at war, whether we know it or not. This war has to be fought on two fronts. The first front is where we live. We have to find conflict resolution centers that will cause us to end our beefs with one another. We must sheathe the sword that we have in our heart for each other and begin to see our value to each other as brothers and sisters. Then we can turn our attention to Washington and the government of the United States of America. We are committed to do our very best, not just to go to Washington and talk about justice or else, but what is the or else? Because every time God sent a prophet, in the message of the prophet, there was a threat and a warning. So it is today. America, you don't have a lot of time to play with the lives and the destiny of a people that God has chosen for himself. We are that people. We are the real children of Israel. And you have it there in your scripture. If you would bless us, you would be blessed by God. But if you continue your evil plans against us, then God will step up the calamities that are facing you from north to south to east to west. Yes, we have to find the path of unity. So I would ask my young brothers and sisters, they've told you about Dr. Martin Luther King, the great man who had a dream. But they never assassinated our brother because of his dream. They assassinated him because he evolved in his development toward the position that the black man and woman of America must have land. He said economic withdrawal is what we should do when we are in pain. We have to redistribute the pain. So Christmas is coming, and we spend an awful lot of money taking Santa Claus and let him kick Jesus to the curb. They're waiting now for Black Friday so that right after Thanksgiving you'd be busting down doors to spend money that you don't have and can't afford, giving gifts away that make the corporations that don't treat us right, that suck the blood out of the black community and give us nothing in return. We can strike a blow and redistribute some of this pain that we are suffering. And to those of you who think we're robbing Christmas of what we generally do, you that have a Bible, go in that Bible and read the 10th chapter of Jeremiah, which the heathens go in the forest, cut down a tree, nail it down, deck it with silver and gold. Isn't that what you're about to do, brother heathen? You think you're really following Jesus when you're the most drunk that you've ever been on Christmas Eve? They sell more liquor during that time than in any other time of the year. They make more money from our ignorance so that they can say that the bottom line of all of these great stores is in the black while we are in the red. $1.3 trillion is coming through our hands this year. That's a lot of money, more than every country on the earth except 9. So said Dr. King. So the night before he died, he said we need to withdraw our money and use it wisely, pool it and use it wisely. So my advice would be, let's stop the beefs. Let's start organizing, and let's make up our mind that this Christmas we're going to honor Jesus properly. Pastors, I don't want you to get no big tree in your church, because that's not Jesus. That's the practice of the pagans before they became Christians. Study what I'm saying and see if you can prove me wrong. Constantine, when he became the Caesar of Rome, he also became a Christian, but he started mixing pagan practices into the worship of a man that they claim is the Son of God. So they were sun worshipers. So the days get shorter and shorter down to December the 21st. And those who worshiped the sun thought that their God was leaving them. So that's why they burned the Yule log. That's why they put these wreaths on the door in green and holly because it represents the sun. That's why they put these balls on the Christmas tree, because they're real sun worshipers. And that's why they put the candle lights in the window. It ain't got nothing to do with Jesus. So I tell you what, this Christmas, tell the big Caucasian fella from the North Pole that you and your reindeers, you go on about your business, because we're going to honor Jesus the Christ this year like we never honored him before. And how would you honor him? How would you do it? Look at the last commandment that he gave. He said, love ye one another, even as I have loved you. You don't need a gift. The gift is you. The gift is mom and dad and family and friends. So why don't we gather together and demonstrate that kind of love and talk to each other like family? Let the booze go in honor of Jesus. Uh-oh, did I say something wrong? You don't need any pot that night except a pot of good stew and soup and good food, and sitting around a table talking about the ones that came this year but didn't make it to Christmas, and enjoying each other's company. That would make a real Christmas. But after that, you'll see a whole new spirit in our community. I hope we didn't hurt your feelings, but if you study what I said, particularly the Reverend, you can lead the revolution. You can lead the pooling of our resources and keep that money in the hands of your parishioners, and maybe some of it will get in the collection plate on the next Sunday.
Now, Minister, I'm from a time, I was living when hip-hop came into the world. You know, we were introduced to hip-hop and gave our brothers and sisters a freedom of speech to speak positively about our people, such as Public Enemy and, you know, Tribe Called Quest in that era. And it was a time when hip-hop came into the 90s, when it became this big rap beef, you know, with Tupac and Biggie and other rap artists. And you actually called a meeting with all the hip-hop artists and came together. And you may catch, you know, shake hands and kill the beef. And the music today, as I will ask you, what would you say to the artists today that's sending out the messages that they sending out to our young children over the radio, over the airwaves? What would you say to these artists today?
First, you have to look to the hidden hand. Our people are puppets on somebody else's string. We came to educate our people through rap. That's why we loved Public Enemy, KRS-One, Big Daddy Kane. All of those were teachers. But the enemy, when he saw that we were independent teaching, he signed us to record labels. Once you get signed to the record label, now you have an A&R man, somebody to tell you what kind of rap you're gonna make. So it was no longer educating our people through rap. It is now gangster rap. I heard that these white folk got together in California with those who were now engaged in the prison industrial complex. And the prisons now are on the stock market because it's privately owned and operated prisons. A man doesn't go into making a hotel unless you expect some, what do you call them, guests in your hotel. Well, this man is not over prisons thinking that he's not going to have heavy guests. So what they did, they transformed intelligent rap to gangster rap to now drill.
So it goes all the way down into funk and filth and death and destruction. So as we beef with each other, then the beef turns into guns. And how did all of these guns get in our hood? They come up in trains and unload trains and give guns to our young people. They're not giving them guns because they think we're going to turn the guns on the white people. They're giving them guns to give them power in their block, in their set. So if I'm a gangster disciple and you Blackstone or somebody else is a four-corner hustler, all of us are looking at each other as the enemy. And then you got to make money. There's no jobs. So I'm selling drugs, you selling drugs. So I got to protect my market. So now my guns are used to destroy another member of my family. So this is why God is going to punish us if we don't see that we are tools of the enemy. We are not servants of God, nor are we friends and brothers of each other the way the Creator made us to be. The enemy has made us the enemy of our community, so the young can't walk the street, the elderly can't walk the street. Nobody is able to stop the pain and the hurt. And so God has to step in, and I tell you what is written. Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, myself, we've been talking for a long time. And all of us are talking about putting the guns down. All of us are talking about uniting these dry bones in the valley, because the greatest power that we have is the power to bring ourselves together into unity. Then 98% of our problems can be solved. But we don't want to unite. So now we are facing a terrible whipping, and I'm hoping that through programs like this, some of our people can be reached and say, look, man, it's time to put this to rest. It's time to put the gun down, killing myself, my people. I'm shooting, don't even know how to go to a gun range, can't go and learn how to shoot. So I'm shooting at my brother and kill a baby that's walking the street. So this got to stop. This is madness, and it's bringing down on us not only the wrath of God, but the wrath of the enemy. So when I heard Mr. Trump call Mad Dog Mathis, now you know everybody got a dog, you love your dog, but a mad dog? People put mad dogs down.
Yes.
And the reason this man is called Mad Dog Mathis, because they sent him into Fallujah in Afghanistan, and that man slaughtered people. So when Mr. Trump say he's sending that man to the south side and the west side of Chicago, he's in Iraq, thank you. I can't make mistakes, so my brother corrected me. It was Iraq. Well, now it's Chirac. And so this man is coming, and he's bringing forces, and I'm here to warn our people, look, it's not going to be a pretty day. So let's get our act together while there's time.
How does that look, getting our act together?
Oh, it looks great if we do it. We're in the hood now, working with our young people. Look, you got to give our people hope. They have no money, they have no jobs, and the enemy took all the factories out of the inner city. So when young people don't have jobs, but they look on television at all these fine things that they can acquire, imagine Air Jordan that is made in some foreign country for $5, $6, and $7, and we are spending $160, $180 for sneakers to run like we are. This is the style. See, this is more madness, but we're victims of a colonial system. And that's why we're saying to our brothers and sisters in the gangs in particular, look, brothers, we're going to have to sit down and work it out. And in our unity, we can make demands. That's our power. And if we are united, we can take control of our communities. You like to fight? Good. Come on with us. And we'll show you how to fight right so that we become the new police force in our own hood. We don't want white people coming in policing us and don't live in our community, don't know what it's like to be black in America. No, you go back where you live and let our young people be trained, not by them, but be trained by us, because we love our people. And we will not hurt our people. And if you allow us to train you, then we'll get for you what you need with God's help.
Very powerful information out. So, Minister Farrakhan, there's been a wealth of information that you're giving us today, and you gave us a checklist of solutions, things that we can do right now that's in front of us that we can take advantage of. And you talk so much about the financial part, and this is what I talk about every week on the show, not just economics, but group economics. Because we have to take a look at our community, and I always say that. I was always curious about that. You know, to walk out of my house and walk to 95th and Jeffrey and to see a beauty supply owned by Asian, or see a liquor store owned by Arab, or see a business owned by a European person in our community. And what I saw was that at the end of the day, before they got ready to leave, first of all, they've disrespected our women all day long. Our youth could only walk into the store 2 at a time because they call them thieves. And then we have people that raise down the black gates in front of their stores, look both ways, get in their car, and take their money back to their community, and we'll never see that dollar again. And what I'm trying to teach us in our community is that we have to let this dollar circulate in our community. Our Jewish community circulates that dollar over 20 times. Asian community, 18 times. Latin community and European communities do that as well. You know how many times the dollar circulates in the black community? It's 0. We're 100% consumption, 0% production, and that's a problem for us. And my key saying that I always say is, I don't want to see another man riding around in a Land Cruiser and don't have land to cruise on.
Come on.
That's a problem to me. Group economics, how can we make that work?
Well, I think you gave the answer. Pooling your resources, that's number one. But if we don't trust each other and don't have love for each other, it'll be very difficult for somebody to take $1 from their pocket, pool it with $1 from your pocket, and everybody in this room put $1 up, and then we start doing business, owning land, creating food and agribusiness. All these empty lots in our community should be turned into gardens where we grow our own food, because the food that we're eating is designed to kill us. So we know how to farm. We know how to put good seed in good earth and turn bad earth into good earth, so we can eat the food that will give us longer, more productive life. And so we have studied, and it's out there. You know, a carrot today is not the same as a carrot 50 years ago. When I was a young boy, I was a little longer than 50 years ago, but when I was a young boy, we never had health food stores. Our health food store was the market, the supermarket, where fresh food was brought from outside the city into the city. It didn't come from California to Boston or from Florida to Boston. We were growing food on the outskirts of the city, so the food came in fresh. And so we had more life in that food. Today, they're gassing fruits, taking them off the tree before they're ripe, and then ripening them with gas and coloring them to make them look so pretty in the supermarket, but you're ingesting death. My dear brothers and sisters, look, I was coming out of Mexico, and there was an English language newspaper, and it was talking about the alligators in the Everglades in Florida. And there was so much estrogen in the water till the male organ of the male alligator was getting smaller and smaller, and the sperm count was getting less and less. The same thing is happening today with us. The sperm count in the black male and white male going down, down, down. The penis shrinking. And when you see these things happening, these are chemical reactions. So the pharmaceutical company now comes out with a pill. Hey, it can grow longer. It can get stronger. Take this pill. And if you take these pills, be careful now, because you may develop breasts. Now look, this is some serious business with a pill. Then they tell you, listen to the commercials on television. They say, now, be careful of this one. The side effects are you might want to commit suicide because it affects the way you think. Everything is chemistry. So if you got the right chemistry, then your body, which is chemical, this body has everything in it that's in the earth. And if you know the right amount of this and that, every organ in your body can be healed through nutrition, not pills.
It's easy to get the pills. They sell them right in the neighborhood gas stations.
Yeah.
Less than $3 to go ahead and tell you that just to make you stronger and bigger and stuff like that. So you even have little teenagers grabbing these pills, putting them into their systems, you know, and they don't even have a chance as they get older as an adult, you know, before they're affected by it.
So you can see, Brother B. Cole, that there's a genocidal plan to take us out little by little. And it's up to men like Brother Darrell and yourself and Tamara and the conscious people in this studio complex to educate our people. Because without our knowledge making a change in our behavior, the foods we eat, the way we cook the food, you're going to end up with all kind of cancers as we are today. We lead in every cancer disease: breast cancer, lung cancer, colon cancer, prostate cancer, brain cancer, pancreatic cancer, liver cancer, kidney cancer. We are dying because of the way we eat, and we have subjected ourselves to the merchants of death.
The minister, your teacher, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, wrote a book, How to Eat to Live. He also designed an economic blueprint for black people years ago. We have somehow gotten away from that. Not the nation, but the nation has gotten away from that. He had gas stations, farms, fast food with healthy food choices. Are we doing anything to bring that back?
We have to. We have to bring it back. We went back into Georgia and bought some of the 5,000 acres that he had that was sold. We bought it back, and we're farming again. And we've raised almost $2 million in an economic fund. It's nearly $2 million. And we intend to get it up to about $10 million. And we're going back to Mississippi and Alabama to buy some of that good earth and begin farming again. We have to feed, clothe, and shelter ourselves.
He also had an economic plan with just 5 cents. Everybody had a nickel a day. Would you please speak to our listeners about that nickel a day?
We still have it.
We do.
Yeah. That's how we raised the
$2 million.
Yeah. Look, if you offered your child, your grandson, 5 cents, what would he say to you?
Scram.
Because what could he buy for 5 cents? That's the point.
Yes.
You got to deal in dollars with your children. Otherwise, they don't respect you. But if you took a nickel a day, there's about 8 million workers among us at 5 cents a day. Now, 8 million, let me see. If you started with 5 cents a day, 7 days a week, that's 35 cents a week. How much is it a month? 4 times that. How much is it a year? It comes up to about $12 to $15 a year.
I think it's 18.
$18.20 a year. Can you afford that?
Yes, sir.
Of course. And imagine millions of us doing something simple like that. Inside of a year, you've got millions of dollars to invest in yourself.
That's the premise that the dollar store was built on. And now it is one of the Fortune 500 traded on the S&P.
We really need to get back to sound economic policy among us. There's nothing that will hinder us if we get our own foot out of our own way.
That's right.
We are free to do business with the world. I have gone all over this earth linking the black struggle in America to the black struggle in Africa, in the Caribbean, in Central South America. People are ready to do business with us if we are ready to do business with them.
And you know, that just brings me to a point now, because we're talking about this economics, and Dr. Clyde Anderson, he talks a lot about
great brother.
Yeah, powernomics. And he was saying that, you know, if we pulled all our resources together here in the United States, African Americans, brothers and sisters, will make up the 9th wealthiest nation in the world if we did
that with the money that comes in
Yes,
to
sir.
our community.
And I see it being spent on a daily basis. I can take just a zip code, 60618, 60617, and just look at the parameters from State Street back all the way towards the water, all the way east, and I see that we spend over $16 million in lottery tickets on the hope of coming together as a community, on the hope of putting money in our pocket. But I think we need to do the work on what it is we're going to do with our money when we get it. And that belief that you talked about, Minister Farrakhan, as you spoke right now, I thought about the Million Man March. And I thought about how my mouth dropped to the floor when you taught me group economics in real time. You said, go in your pocket, take out $1. $1. Now pass that forward. It's 1 million men out here, right? Then we should have $1 million. And I thought about that. I put a frame around that and I said, whoa, that was just very powerful what happened. He built wealth in a matter of minutes. And I think what's lacking in our community is the love for each other, to put my money in my brother's hand and know that it's secure. Why do we have that blockage right now when you've given us a blueprint for it already?
Because we don't trust. And what happened then, this is the only group that had a group in Washington raised money and had two CPA firms, and we made a public disclosure of every nickel, every dime, and every dollar. Why? Because we want our people to know we're not robbers. We're not thieves. And you know what the enemy did? First of all, when he saw all those dollars go up, pardon me,
Yes, sir.
the preacher said to me, Farrakhan, are you going to proselytize your faith? A wonderful brother, his name is Bishop Brookins, wonderful man. I said, no, Bishop, I'm going to ask all these black men to go home and join a spiritual house of their choice, whether it be Christian, Hebrew, Muslim, I don't care, as long as it's teaching spiritual values. I said, I'm going to ask every one of these men to join an organization that's fighting for the rights of black people. That happened. So now the enemy said, well, what do you did with the money? And when we called a press conference with the CPAs of, I think it's either 2 or 3 firms, laid it out for the world, these white folk wouldn't even print it because they make their trade in keeping us suspicious and doubting the righteousness of each other. And I can't blame us because most of the people that take our money are liars and thieves.
But in this digital age right now, you could track that. Like if we had a ambassador that actually, you could be the ambassador to that 5 cents economic development
I'm probably
program.
the only one they would trust.
Absolutely. And you can, just like you can track your online banking right now, you could track your online giving to this huge economic pool. But you, Minister Farrakhan,
Look, hey, you looks better than everybody in the room right now. What are you eating? I gotta follow your plan, brother, because you look amazing, Minister.
How to eat to live.
I'm trying to tell
By
you.
the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He said, I am like a traffic cop.
Yes, sir.
Stopping your rush into the grave. And we're running at a breakneck speed to jump into the grave. But if we knew how to eat, what to eat, when to eat, we could preserve our lives so we can get more done in the liberation struggle of our people.
Yes, sir.
What was your question you had for him, Brother Renegade? Step to the mic.
Brother, first of all, I want to thank you for being here. And I can't thank Brother Abdul enough for working with me over this past year to make this happen. I do a lot of shows out here in Chicago. I do concerts, I do local events. I deal with a lot of people that come from different areas of Chicago. My question to you is this. Everybody make a big deal about violence in Chicago. And everybody got stats. They'll say, January, this many people got killed. February, this many people got killed. But what people don't talk about enough is the reasons. And I know a lot of these guys. And to be honest, a lot of people in these streets know these guys who's doing the murders, who's doing all the crimes. So my question to you is this. I've noticed that it's not about so much of people getting killed, it's the reasons why, and it's retaliation. What can you say to the youth about the retaliation part? Because that's really what's going on right now as far as the murder crisis.
We have come to that point in our development where we believe that if you strike me, I have to strike you. If you kill one of my brothers or sisters, I have to kill one of yours. This is the principle of retaliation. It's a natural principle. Problem is, we are the victims of an enemy who put us in a mental state of self-hatred. So if I hate the way God made my hair, my nose, my lips, if I hate my origin in Africa, if I'm a hater of self, then my brother, I hate him too. So the scripture says, how can you love God whom you have never seen and hate your brother whom you see every day? Well, what is there about God and your brother that you can love a God that you have not seen, but you know the greatness of his works? But when you look at your brother, you don't see God. So when I see you, if you notice when I shook your hand, I looked in your eyes. I bowed to you. I told you I was honored to meet you because I know you. And because I know who you are and whose you are, I know your origin in the world from the greatest teacher that ever was among us, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I know that when I look at you, I am looking at God. So I don't have to wait to see God when I die. I see him every day while I live. And because I know when I'm looking at you, I'm looking at God. Then holiness does not begin in a church or a mosque. Holiness begins when I see my mother, when I see my father, when I see my brother, my sister. When I see you, I see me. And if I love me, because the scripture says, love God first with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And the second commandment is like unto that, love your neighbor as yourself. Well, you don't live in white folks' town. You live in the hood. So if you live with your brother and sister, live with your people, you should learn to know yourself, know your people, love yourself, love your people. Then retaliation will diminish. Now let's go back to our Christian roots. Jesus was a powerful teacher.
Yes, he was.
Now look, he didn't want us to be natural. Because natural is this. If you hit me, brother, I'm going to hit you back.
Right.
If you strike me on my cheek, look out for your cheek. But with Christ, now listen to what he gave the disciples, because he was a redeemer. And we have to redeem our people from the condition that they are in of self-hate.
So I receive a lot of insults from my people. I mean, my people have given me hell for 62 years of my work, but I don't give them back what they give me. I give them love in return for hate. I give them a blessing in return for cursing. I stand up for them when they won't stand up for themselves, because I know them and I love them and I want to bring them up from the condition that white folk have put us in. We are not haters of self by accident. The white man made us into himself. What name do you wear? You don't have an African name. You don't speak an African language. You don't represent African culture. You don't know your African roots, your African history. You are a white man and a white woman in black skin. And that's why we hate ourselves, because he hates us. And he put his hatred of us into us. So now we hate each other, hate ourselves, and kill each other at the drop of a hat. But in the law of retaliation, suppose they killed us and then they died. That would be fitting. But you don't have it in your heart to kill those who've been killing us for 400 years. You have it in your heart to kill your brother over a stolen hamburger or over something silly. And as I've been a part of the solving the beefs with hip-hop for the last maybe 40 years or more, I've been at the table with most of the hip-hop artists that were in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s. But the moment we settle a beef, they promote the beef. The beef is promoted by the record companies, who will give you a record deal because you call a black woman out of her name. They'll give you a record deal. The more funky and low down and the more you drill down, they give you a record contract, a little bit of money, so you could put a little bling bling on and act like you really are something great, but in reality, they're setting you up for slaughter. Now, when you are successful, your own people will hate you for your success because they are born to be successful, but they're filled with envy because you got there first. So we need a teaching that will cleanse us from what the white man has done to us and done with us and never done good for us. That's our job. That's the job of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and that's the job that he gave me. So all you brothers and sisters that are listening, can you stop a moment and forgive yourself and forgive the ignorance of your people? Can you stop retaliating over nothing? And will you put the gun down until you get sense that the gun will be an extension of your manhood, not your manhood? I don't carry a gun, but I'm a man without a gun.
Yes, sir.
I'm a man with courage because I met with God and a teacher from God who brought God up out of me. And that's why you love me. You love me not because I told you to love me. You love me because I do good for myself, for you, for our people. I stand up for you. So you say, man, this guy here, he's either crazy or he knows something, because he don't let nobody put some stuff over on us without defending us to the max.
That's right. That's right.
If you will do that, stop a moment and start pulling back from retaliation
on your brother who is ignorant, and let's sit down and make peace with each other. Then we'll have unity and strength. Then we can clean up our own community, own our own community, and make it a decent and safe place for us to live. Thank you, Brother Renegade, for the question.
Sir, you guys, I know the listeners want to talk to the minister. You want to talk? You ready to talk to the listeners, minister? He said, sure. He said something. I know it was never hard for him in high school to get nothing situated, get out of a situation or nothing. You said I did what? Couldn't have been me. So you right, minister. You good. But Raw Radio, who is this?
This is Keon. How you doing?
Man, I'm blessed. How are you doing today, good brother?
I'm blessed also.
You on with the minister.
How you doing, minister?
I'm fine, my brother. How are you doing?
I'm blessed also. It's an honor. It's an honor to hear the magic words coming out of your mouth, sir.
And it's my honor to meet you by telephone, but I hope I'll be able soon to meet you in person.
Yes, sir. Right now I'm in Indy. I'm good friends with K. Caesar. You know I am. What's up, K. Caesar? But
How you doing, sir?
First of all, I'd like to tell you it's a blessing, though. Just to hear your powerful words is inspiring. You know.
Thank you. Do you have a question for me?
Yes, sir. What direction would you like to see that pretty much the African American youth of today's today's society to go towards, like empowering each other and or what, sir?
Brother, that's a great question. We can solve our own problems. 98% of our problems, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us, can be solved with our unity. And because the enemy knows that if we unify, we won't be put down, we'll be lifted up. He does everything in his power to keep us divided against self. So the first thing we have to do, particularly the young, because now you're fearless. You're the most strong generation that we have ever produced. And since the riots in the various cities when Dr. King was assassinated, and from that point on, they have been studying black youth. And they know that black youth are the real agent of real change and liberation. So how are they dealing with black youth? Let me say what they're doing, brothers. You know you don't have jobs. Right. At one time, it was factories in the inner city of Chicago, and our males would go to the factories, make money, come home to the south side and west side, and build a fairly decent life. But 50 years ago, they decided that it was dangerous for white people to invest money in the inner cities of America. So they started not only not investing, but divesting or divesting factories out of the inner cities, placing them in third world countries where cheap labor would allow them to make their products. Then they closed down schools that taught us trades. So now we are here, no job and no skill. So enter the drug dealer, enter the gun merchant, enter the U.S. government MK Ultra plan to use the youth and turn them into super predators by stopping you, frisking you, arresting you, taking you to jail, turning you in jail, and infecting you with certain pills and drugs that are now emasculating you.
So you're no longer the strong black male that gave them hell in the 60s and the 70s, but you are now an emasculated, feminized black man. So they are working night and day to put us in the state that we're in, where our women are more men than we are. Our women are more progressive than we are. Our women are filling up the colleges while the black male is filling up the jails. This is not your doing. This is by design of the United States government. So this is what I would like to say to the government. You know the clouds of war are gathering. And you know anytime there's a war, you look for the poor and the weak and lie to them. You're saying you're going to give them greater opportunity if they join the armed forces of the United States of America. You send them to Afghanistan. You send them to Iraq. You send them to Syria. You sent us to Korea. You sent us to Vietnam. We died in greater numbers than whites because we have no jobs, so the Army was our job. The Navy was our job. But I want to tell you, if you make war this time, you're going to fight it for yourself, because if we can't get justice inside America, what right do we have to go and kill somebody who is not killing us and walk by the people that are killing us every day? And I'm not just talking about cops killing us. It's a government strategy with food, with water, with air to kill and destroy the black man's ability to be a man. So our women don't see hope in us. I heard a brother teach today, Dr. Wesley at Muhammad's Mosque, and you need to tune in NOI.org and see what he said about how the government of the United States is literally experimenting with youth to control our behavior. So the super predator is made by white people, starting in the prisons. The feminized black male is made by white people with the interference of our natural hormones. Look, brother and sister, we are under attack. And we don't have time to be killing each other. We need to sit down and unite with each other against the enemy that's killing us all. It ain't about a gunshot. It's about a plan of the government of the United States of America. So when the war comes, you let them know, I'm sorry. We're not fighting. You know what they said in when Stokely Carmichael or Kwame Ture, he said, hell no, I won't go. We don't have no right to go fight in Iraq when we're suffering in Chicago. We don't have no right to fight in Syria when we can't do what we're supposed to do in Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, New York, Illinois. Our fight is here.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Minister.
And they know we can't fight if you don't know your enemy.
Come on.
You are not the enemy of each other. You've been made an enemy by the divided, manipulative attitude of white people. You go into school to get what? What kind of education are we receiving? If it is their education, we need to reject it because it has not made us progressive for ourselves. Why are we paying taxes for an educational system that's destroying us? Why are we paying taxes to a police department that's killing us? Why are we paying taxes, period? So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, we shouldn't pay taxes if we're not getting justice. And we're not going to fight in your war since we don't make no wars. You make them and want us to fight them for you. No more. These young people will not die on a foreign battlefield. If we're gonna die, let us die where we are dying right now under the wicked manipulative power of a government that's taking advantage of our ignorance. Thank you for your question. Thank you for your statement.
Clap it up for the minister, y'all. He's in the building. We're about to take a few more calls. The lines are lit up right now. It's Rob Radio.
That was a drop of cold. That was cold. Yeah, that was cold.
It's Rob Radio right on Power 92. Well, Miss Sherelle had a question for you with the Rob Radio team. Go ahead, sisters. Talk directly into the mic.
First of all, I just want to say it's an honor. I'm honored to even be in your presence. Your ancestral energy that you're bringing through this room. I mean, your vibration just on point. I respect you to the utmost. You are a god. I started following you after 95 when you had the Million Man March. And that's when I wanted more of your teaching. And then I know you have been married over 60 years to the same woman. Excuse me, I'm getting choked up a little bit.
It's all right. You
It's
know
all
that,
good.
Mr. Minister. I cried too. Go ahead.
Cole said he cried too.
I just want to say you've been around for answers that's gone here today, and you are our leader. You know,
That's right.
You
That's
are
right.
our
That's
leader.
right. That's
But
right.
everybody always say, "Where's our leaders?" You are our leader. I respect you to the utmost.
That's right.
And you touched on a couple of my questions. Excuse me. I did stop eating meat. I was at Jerk Villa about to get some some hots or something, and they was taking so long. And I walked over to the store and I saw the book How to Eat to Live.
Beautiful.
And I picked it up. Ever since I stopped eating pork, and I don't even eat meat no more because I was trying to find out why I was getting aggressive chin hairs. And a lot of females that I know was getting aggressive chin hairs.
Somebody like this?
So I wanted to, I got more into that, but I do have a question. Since we're finding estradiol in our son's blood, which according to Dr. Wesley Muhammad reduces testosterone, doesn't Honorable Elijah Muhammad instructions to eat Navy bean prove his divinity since it combats testosterone deficiency? And what are the examples of Elijah Muhammad's foresights?
First, thank you so much, Sherelle and Afia, for your wonderful question. Thank you for your spirit. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teacher, Master Fard Muhammad, who came from the holy city of Mecca, and he introduced himself to us in 1930. And as our first great teacher who taught the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he went into the homes of our black people and he told them that they should empty out all their medicine cabinets because the real answer to all sickness can be found in foods and in your kitchen. So when a woman does not know how to cook and the right foods to cook, she's preparing death for herself, her husband, and her children. Food is a science. Nutrition is a science. This body that we have is from the earth, and everything that's in the earth is in us, but it's in us in a degree of balance. And when you eat proper food, it gives you everything you need to fight what the enemy is doing. For instance, as Dr. Wesley said today, the assault on the black male is an assault on testosterone, and the effeminization of the black male is due to a rise in estrogen, which is the female hormone, in the male. So this navy bean is such a powerful fighter. We didn't know the science behind it. We just obeyed Elijah Muhammad. and we ate that navy bean and we made a bean soup. Then they learned how to take that same bean and make it into a pie that tastes to some like what's that? Sweet potato pie, but it's bean pie. And the health, we make carrot cake. So that we are feeding ourselves all the time with good food. Now you can go to the supermarket and you think you're buying good food because it looks so wonderful. The green is super green, the yellow is super yellow, the red is super red, and you say, wow, this looks so good. But oftentimes they're coloring the food. So the colors are carcinogens. So we have to learn how to farm again. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that the white man so cleverly, when he mistreated us in the South on the plantations, when our people left Mississippi, Arkansas, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, flowing to the northern cities, particularly Chicago and Detroit, we never wanted to see a farm again. We never were interested in agriculture anymore. So the land that we had in the South, we didn't care to keep it. We lost it. So at the close of the Civil War and the emancipation of the black man, we had millions and millions of acres of land that we owned. And within a few years, we are down now to 1/4 of the acreage of land that we used to own. The white man gave us a promise. He said he was going to let us go, and he was going to give us 40 acres and a mule. There were 5 million blacks at that time coming out of slavery. Imagine what 40 acres and a mule would have looked like if the white man fulfilled his promise. We would have had millions, hundreds of millions of acres of land. California is one of the greatest producing states in terms of foods, in terms of vegetables, in terms of fruit. A lot of it comes from California. California is a little over 100 million acres. That's one state that holds 60 million or more people. So imagine if we had 40 acres and a mule, we would have our own large tracts of land to cultivate and develop proper food. So today, black people want to know what to do in the inner cities. Look at all the vacant lots. If we took those vacant lots and learned how to turn those lots into plots of land for agriculture, we could begin to feed ourselves in the inner cities. In Cuba, I was blessed to be a guest of Fidel Castro, a wonderful brother, and in the city of Havana, they have tracts of land where people are farming enough to feed the whole population of Havana from the city. What could we do in Chicago? Some brothers and sisters are doing it right now, but we need to amplify that. If you go to Growing Power by Will Allen, I sent, by God's grace, we sent about 14 Muslims to learn from him not only how to farm, but how to create soil. We have a farm in Michigan, and Will Allen came to our little farm, and we were planting navy beans.
the University of Michigan didn't think that beans would grow there, but we had a great productive crop. And Mr. Allen said, you know, Minister, we could show you how to make soil. Right now on that land, we have created hundreds of thousands of pounds of soil. And our soil, my daughter, sent it to the government in in Michigan to test our soil that we created. Guess what came back? They said that the soil that we made on our farm in Michigan was preferred over all that they have composted in Michigan. Our soil is better. Now we are growing food that's rich. We are canning now. And we're going to teach all of this to our people. The future is in our hands. Don't continue to blame the white man. To heck with him. The burden is ours. And the journey and the battle is God's. And if we would unite, he would bless us. Oh my goodness. Taking over our community. Now, my dear sister Sherelle, if you notice, you walk around in our community, see what's being sold to our people. Did you know that there's food coming in that they give away? But there are certain, Dr. Wesley was saying it today, that there are certain zip codes that the worst kind of food goes to. And who lives in those zip codes? I was in Newark, New Jersey, where the great son of Amiri Baraka, Brother Raz Baraka, is now the mayor. And he told me that they are poisoning the water, but directing the water with the most lead into the black and brown communities. This is not just Flint, Michigan. This is Cleveland. This is Jersey. This is Chicago. We are being killed, and our ability to reproduce is being stunted. So the egg of the female is being compromised, and the sperm of the male is being compromised. And he said today, and it bothered me, that a Muslim brother said he didn't want to come and hear Dr. Wesley because he going to talk about reefer.
Kush, come on.
And what do you call it?
Kush.
Yeah, see, I don't know, man. Yo.
Hold on, y'all. Hold on. Break it, dude. Minister Sam don't know nothing about no Kush.
You know, I'm an old man trying to keep it 100. You know? But he said Kush is the name that they use.
Right.
And Kush, the Kushites were black people. So when they call it Kush, it's targeted to black people. It's not just the same reefer that's in other communities. They doctor it with certain chemicals. You call it loud in Chicago. Oh, loud.
Come on, teach us.
And so, I mean, look, we in love with loud. How you doing, sweetheart? Wonderful. So this loud is really affecting our hormones. It's reducing testosterone. It's raising estrogen. So you getting loud and loud and loud and louder, and all of a sudden your hand get crooked. And you begin to get sweet. And just as he said today, it's real. You look on television, most of the light-skinned and people that are on television, a lot of us are gay or homosexual. A straight black man that's going to be a real man, he don't get the job. But if you a little, what do they call it? Bent?
Right. Gender bender.
Gender bender.
A little on the other side there.
A little on the other side. And not on the other side of Jordan. This is on the other side of self. Making you into something that would cause you to be rejected by God and to be rejected by each other. So we are under assault. And that's why I love the rappers. I have an album coming out, by the way.
Hold on, did you see I'll take a bar. Say anything on that.
I was in the mastering studio in Los Angeles, and I ran into Kendrick Lamar. And Kendrick was finishing his album.
Yes, Kendrick.
And he said, damn, damn. And he ran into me. I was in another studio. He was in one. And I know that the white people were excited because we were hugging each other and we showed a lot of love to each other, because I have great respect for him, for Chance, and for those rappers. My man over here, Conflict, who is putting wisdom in song, wisdom in rap. See, you can educate your people away from the enemy just with one rap. Now, T.D. Jakes is one of the great preachers, but one rap is worth 100 sermons. Especially if the sermon got you looking back 2,000 years ago when Jesus is walking today.
Come on.
We in the Roman government now. America is the modern Rome. America is the modern Babylon. America is the modern Sodom and Gomorrah. America is the modern Egypt, in which the people of God have been enslaved under tyranny for 460 years. It's time for the black man to go free. So this is the mission of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and this is my assignment. I know, Sherelle, you gave such a beautiful question, and I got a run-on sentence, but I can't help myself.
I thank you. You answered that to the utmost, because you covered everything that I had questions about. Like I said, my household has changed. My children now, we changed up our diet, and we're eating different, and I just have the utmost respect. You look great, by the way.
Oh yeah,
I'm listening to you, and I'm just not just getting it, but you look. You look like I should be listening to you. So I have the utmost, and your teeth are straight. It just everything about you just beautiful, and I'm just so great.
No coming up minister now.
Honored to be in your presence. No, just nothing but respect. Nothing but respect, Baba. Nothing but respect.
Let me tell you, sister. I appreciate your words, and I love you very, very, very much.
Love you back.
All the sisters up in here. Without you, we wouldn't be.
Yeah, that's right.
And without you by our side, we can never achieve. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, no nation can rise any higher than its woman. So if you put your woman down, you go down with her. If you lift your woman up, you go up with her. So our disrespect of our women is a part of the self-hatred of us as men. Our women demand from us what we can't give because we're broken men. So in the nation of Islam and the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, He teaches the woman how to help the man be the man that he should be, that she can fall in love with him, honor him, and respect him because he's becoming a man. How do you know he's becoming a man? Because he's becoming more like God. Yes. I could not be who I am if God didn't give me a woman to help me be what I am. Yes, you mentioned my marriage to my wife, which is 63 years, 64 years now. 64 years. And she and I are growing beautifully older together. And I mean, just look at my skin.
Yes, sir.
See, a white woman in the bank looked at me the other day, pardon me. And she said, "Oh, minister, your skin has no wrinkles and you, wow, you look so beautiful. How old did you say you are?" "Oh, you have a birthday." She's looking at my record. "Oh, you have a birthday coming up." "Yes, I do. I'll be 84 years old." Oh. I mean, I can't tell you that I don't have some illness, but you don't have to die so young. That's right. And lose your mind with Alzheimer's and all kind of disease. It's the food that you eat, the drinks that you eat. So look, if these young brothers, if we could put Kush down, right. Come on, put loud down, and put loud down, right. And pick up Message to the Black Man. All you need is knowledge. That book is so pregnant with knowledge. If you just got that book and book 1 of How to Eat to Live and began following it, what Dr. Wesley did today, he broke down the science of a Navy bean, the science of the hormones that are ill affecting us because they're being manipulated by chemicals that the enemy is causing us to ingest. Stay away from so much fast food. It tastes good, but it's not good. Go and let's grow food. Yeah. And eat what we grow. And I guarantee you, you'll live longer and make stronger and wiser babies. Have you noticed that the babies you making right now, when they come from you, all of a sudden they're looking around. That's right. They're different. They're different. And then the enemy wants to get that baby as the minute you get it, they want to take it and give it. Don't let the enemy take your babies. Fight for the life of your baby, and you'll be fighting for your own future. God bless you, Sherelle. I feel you.
Like the minister said, put the loud down, y'all. Speaking of that, now we finna get into this hate by crucial conflict in the middle of the bar. Let's go. It's Raw Radio Power 92. Much more coming up, y'all. Raw Radio, who is this?
Yeah, my name is Ryan Bosley.
You said it so fast. Say it one more time.
Ryan Bosley.
Awesome. Hey, you on with the minister, man. You just wanted to say what up to our listeners, all right?
All right.
He's right here.
First, I want to greet you. Assalamu alaikum, minister.
Wa alaikum salam, sir. Thank you for calling.
Thank you. I had the pleasure of talking to you a couple years ago, and I asked you in Atlanta, I don't know if you remember or not, but about corruption. And that day when I met you, I felt the presence of God. I've been around a lot of people, and that day my knees shook with like the thunder from heaven. Wow. And that voice, your presence, I want to say thank you for everything you've done. The past 2 years, I've been working hard, and I started a nonprofit called One Love, One God, One Nation, because the guidance that you gave me. And it's based in Columbus, Ohio. I actually sent you a proposal to Chicago inviting you to be our keynote speaker for an event, if possible, this summer. Because Columbus, Ohio has the #1 in the nation with police killing black men. We have skyrocketed with violence so high, second to Chicago in the nation when it came to homicides. We doubled from 20-something last year to 56 homicides so far this year, and half of those are by police killing black men. I asked you, I said a couple years ago in the land about corruption. This corruption has gotten worse, and I wish there was a way we could hear you in Columbus. And also, there is a sister that is a believer, and she is doing great things in our community in Columbus with the garden. She is getting locked, and she is planting food, and she is giving back. Brother Ishmael actually came to Columbus, and he was able to see it for himself.
Yes, sir.
So I want to ask you, brother minister, is there a way we can get your presence in Columbus for people can feel what I felt, to hear that presence of God, to understand the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, because they are dying so quickly in our black neighborhoods, and I'm getting tired of what these police are doing. I thank you for pushing me even harder as a young college student down here and going to the mosque number 15, and giving me that guidance to show that we can do something together as a nation and that we can change this world.
Thank you for your question. I may not be able to physically come to all the cities that desire for me to come, but I can come by Skype, or I can physically be present through a means of a video conference. And I have to do more of that, because every time I travel with a lot of people, and I don't ask people to pay me anything for my coming. So after a while, it becomes non-productive, because I'm spending tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars traveling and not asking people for anything. So I have to find a better way to do it, and I would love to come. So let's talk about how I can send you a videotape of 15 or 20 minutes, or come by Skype, and we have another video conferencing machine that we can have one man on your side and one man here with me, and I can come to you that way. But physical travel at my age and in my health condition would not be the best use of my time. But technology will be a great help. Thank you for your question. And remember, corruption has appeared on the land and the sea on account of what men's hands have wrought, that God may make them taste a part of what they have done, so that perhaps they may return to a better course. Corruption brings its consequences. May God bless us to avoid it.
Why should our people have to subsist on charity or live in poor houses when we built the country for you, fought, bled, and died to maintain the country for you? You ask us to pay taxes like everybody else. Wait a minute, we don't get justice. We give you our tax dollar to support a police department that doesn't respect us. We give you our tax dollar to support education that does not educate us properly. We give you our tax dollars. You spend $4 billion each year on Israel to maintain Israel in a welfare position. You send billions of dollars. You rebuilt Germany. You rebuilt Japan. Here we are, fought, bled, and died, made you what you are. What are you willing to come on down with to help the black man rebuild himself?
You know what I think? I think you've given up.
Given up on what?
On the ideal of an integrated America, the dream of Martin Luther King. I think you've given up. I'm not trying to be a smart aleck now. I'm telling you honestly that I think you've given up.
If I may respond, the Kerner Commission, established by President Johnson in 1967, said that there were two societies one black, one white, one rich, one poor. And the Kerner Commission gave specific recommendations that had to be followed if America believed in integration. 20 years after that, a group of scientists got together to see what the progress was. And the progress is that we have a larger middle class, but the masses of black people have gone backward. And the country is not only separate and unequal, but in worse condition today than it was then. So I don't think, Mr. Donahue, you should put it on me that I've given up. America has never believed in integration. Never.
If that's the case, why are you even bothering to suggest that you're interested in it? Why not make your statement more in fact and without qualification? And if America has not been interested in integration, I assume you feel it never will be, certainly not in your lifetime. So why don't you proceed then from that point of view and tailor your speeches accordingly?
It's deeper than that, Mr. Donahue. We have a stake here. We have helped to build this country. When the Civil War broke out, supposedly, Mr. Lincoln wanted to free the slaves, but according to his own words, he really didn't care whether America had slaves or not. He really wanted to save the Union. Black soldiers fought on the side of the North and the South. The Union was saved, but we were not.
Yeah.
We have done what every citizen should do, but we have gotten nothing from it. So America is in trouble. And we believe we have a solution to the problem. And if the solution is good for black people, it's good for America.
Yeah. With time fleeting, what is the solution?
If we are already separate but unequal, and there is not the will on the part of the United States government, nor is there a national will to reconcile the differences between black and white.
If you don't believe there is.
No, I don't.
All right. Well,
I really don't.
Okay, let's not qualify it then.
But when I say if, I'm speaking now for those who might think there is that possibility.
Well, why mollify them?
Huh?
Why patronize them? Why accommodate them if that's not what you feel?
I don't wish for them at this point to feel that their thinking is discredited. But if in the course of this discourse and in the face of the overwhelming evidence that America really doesn't want black people, then look, let's tally up what is owed to us. Let's sit down and talk about a just solution, and I tell you, like Moses said to Pharaoh, let us go and do something for ourselves.
Okay, so let me understand this now. We're going to come up with several billion, I assume, huh?
I don't think this is the appropriate forum.
Well, no, I'm just trying
discuss.
to. I don't either, but I'm just trying to find out. Reparations not unlike, but certainly more substantial than those that were voted for the Japanese who were interned in World War II. Money which incidentally has yet to be forthcoming to them. Approved but not expended. Okay, I get that. Now, where are you going? Are you going then back to the homeland? Are you going back to the African continent? Is that your idea?
You know, again, all of these black people here have a stake here. We have a stake here, I think, that is more valid than those who just came here a few years ago. These are the children of those who built this. So, yes, we can go there or we can stay here. If we stay here, then why not separate and give to the children of those who built this country land and reparations that we may go and do something for ourselves. Now, I did mention, however, that there is the possibility of some of us returning to Africa. Africa is in need of the scholarship that we have gained from our sojourn in America. And just as England let go some of her convicts who had no hope, languishing in prisons, to help build this, and just as Britain let go of her convicts to build Australia and New Zealand, we have 609,000 black young men behind prison bars with no hope at all. Since we have the ability to reform them, let us reform them. Give us our tithe. Look, wait, just 1 minute. Since Africa had a part in our coming here, for it was some African brothers of ours who helped to sell us. And there were some Arabs who had a part in it. There were some Jews who had a part in it. There were some Europeans who had a part in it, but the death blow was dealt by the slave masters here in what is called now the United States. So since we didn't give up our right to Africa, then why should not we petition our own kith and kin to set apart for the children of the slaves certain land and territory that some of us, particularly those who have no hope whatsoever in the society, let them go to begin to build a new reality for themselves and for their people.
In the homeland, in the land from which their kith and kin originated, and from which they came. Now, those who choose not then to go to Africa.
Again, they have as much right here as you do.
Well, but wait a minute. We've got a deal here. We're letting people out of jail.
Yeah.
Well, that does complicate it just a little bit. Where do I, assuming that not all the brothers will wish to return to Africa, obviously I do not presume to speak for them, but it's not unreasonable to assume that not all of them want to go. Is it your notion that there should be an area within the continental United States to establish a nation, a separate nation?
If we agree that these brothers and sisters of ours can't get any justice within the social, political, and economic order that you call the United States.
You said if. You don't think they can.
Why shouldn't we be separated in a state or territory of our own?
Because then there's this imaginary line. You get some sheriff down there chewing mail pouch, and we've discussed this before.
But look,
all of a sudden somebody starts holding hands with somebody else at the drive-in theater, and then the racist words are heard in the night, and there goes the neighborhood. Come on, you can't possibly expect.
You can't trivialize the cry for justice. Right. Now, it was not impossible for England, France, America, and the United Nations to take land from the Palestinians and settle Jews in a state of their own, giving hope to oppressed Jews all over the world. Why should there be this trivialization of a desire on the part of black people, since we have not made it here, to go and do something for ourselves? We as black people have to provide a future for our people, for the government, and white people are not providing a future for us. So it is wrong for us to stay around laying at the foot of white people like the Bible's Lazarus, begging for crumbs that fall from their table when we can go and make a table of our own.
Minister Farrakhan, when you suggest, I'll just take a minute here, when you suggest that I trivialize your proposal, you speak to an attitude that I didn't present, far from trivializing it. I am merely asking you to consider the consequences of an isolated island of African Americans within the community that we now call the United States of America. And you use the state of Israel to support your notion and its practical possibilities. And yet you feel that Israel was immoral and unfair to Palestinians in its declaration of statehood in 1948.
But
So
you
now
had the
what?
will to take land from Palestinians. We have a more natural right to land in Africa or land here than the Jews had to Palestine.
Okay.
And if you could do that for them, sir, with all due respect, why is it so silly to think that we now should be some isolated ghetto? We can be isolated in the ghetto, but we can't be together in unity.
I didn't say
building
that.
a nation. No, you didn't say that, but I'm saying it. You think that we're going off into some isolation.
Well, where will it be? Where will it be? You want?
Well, that's something we have to discuss.
Yeah?
We have to negotiate that.
You got. Let me. May I ask you for some brief commentary on this before our break? This audience wants in here. You agree with Ronald Reagan that the welfare state creates a slave mentality, do for me, and is a kind of sleeping pill for the recipients, regardless of color. Do I understand you correctly?
You understand Mr. Reagan correctly. But a welfare mentality was created when my fathers and mothers were made slaves and robbed of the knowledge of themselves and dependent totally on a slave master for food, clothing, and shelter. So that when we were so-called set free by the 13th Amendment, we didn't have the mentality of a free people to go and do for ourselves. So we turned right back around and volunteered our services for not free labor, but so close to free labor. So now Mr. Reagan says we don't want welfare because it leads to dependence. We already have been made dependents, but he uses that as an excuse to cut back on what he was already giving to the people and then never providing the safety net that he said he would put under those that he cut off. That is injustice, and it only compounds the evil.
You'll be brief, I know.
I am so sick and tired of this chip that you're carrying on your shoulder. We have bent over backwards. We have done backflips to make you feel equal. And yet, we've done everything. A perfect example is in the federal government. If you and I get the exact same rating for a position, do you know what? You get it. And do you know why? Because you're black. Is that fair? Is that fair to me?
Lucy, you want to speak to that?
There is a woeful lack of understanding, not only in the black community, but really in the white community, of why black people are in the condition that we're in and why all of the efforts that whites have made and government has made to try to solve the problem in the way that government sees fit has not really worked. And blacks are still crying out for more and more and more. And I realize that this is an irritant to white people because you really don't understand. And it's not really your fault. It's not really your fault. You just don't understand. But I think if you gave yourself a chance to hear what happened to these black people that makes them as they are as an irritant to you and those who think you have done the best you could. And maybe you have, but I respectfully suggest to you that there's so much more that could be done, that should be done, and that must be done if America is to survive. Believe me.
I would like to know, as a mother and a grandmother, what can we do to instill in our children coming up? The older ones, we can't do anything with them, but the little ones is coming out. What can we do as mothers to help? Because we can't leave America. We have our roots here. We would like to stay, but we would like to make it a better America.
If we wish to make our children better, one of the things we have to do is to teach them the knowledge of themselves. As a little boy, my blessed mother kept instilling in me the love and the pride of being black. She made me to know my history, to know my roots. So I grew up with a love for myself and secure within myself, never feeling inferior and certainly not feeling superior, but that chip on the shoulder that the young lady spoke about is my self-assurance, my confidence, my ability to speak the truth without fear. I don't bend when I don't have to. I don't scratch where I don't itch. I look white people in the eye and speak honestly and truthfully and candidly and unhypocritically to you. That's not a chip. That's just self-assurance that comes from self-knowledge. Teach your children that, and whether we are here or there, we'll be able to make a future for ourselves.
And we'll be back in just a moment.
I'd like to, first of all, welcome Minister Farrakhan to New York City. My name is Dennis Raheem Watson from the National Black Youth Leadership Council. On behalf of black youth at colleges and universities all across the nation, high schools, elementary schools, who look up to you for divine leadership, for spiritual leadership, for representing all of the aspirations of our grandmothers and ancestors who made us be all that we can be.
Question is?
This is not a question. This is just a level of applause and commendation for one of the greatest minds we have on the planet Earth. You need America. You don't need America. America needs you. You are the salvation, and I applaud you.
Well, I'd just like to say thank you for the words, but you know, we need this too. And if it's mutual need, then there can be mutual cooperation to find a solution to a problem that is bringing all of America down. See? So let's try to find a way that we can dialogue. Blacks and Jews and blacks and whites. I am not against a relationship, but it just can't be the master-slave relationship. That's all over.
But you can't.
You constantly speak of injustice in the country. Look at the injustice that you're doing to these people. Let America be the way it should be. What do you want to separate everyone for? What is the purpose of that? That's not this country.
First, miss, you said let America be what it should be. Should is the conditional. And the conditions now, ma'am, the conditions are that America is separate. You have 2 million Indians on reservations, Indian women being sterilized. You have 30 million blacks unemployed, unemployable.
Whites and Jews and
look,
all different kinds of people, not just blacks.
Miss, I gotta say this. Miss, Jews have organizations and leaders looking out for their concerns. Whites have organizations and leaders looking out for their concerns. As a black person, I reserve the right to look out for the concerns of my own people. And if we all look out for the concerns of our people and do justice by our people and by one another, then possibly America might be conditionally what you think it ought to be, but I really don't think you got that amount of time.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
I can dare say this is the only country on the face of the earth where black, brown, white, polka-dotted all have equal opportunity. They can make it.
The lady who raised the point that America is a great land of opportunity, we can't deny that America has given everyone who has come opportunity. But to the blacks who built this, I suggest to you, miss, you are not qualified to speak for us. You are not qualified to speak for us. You are only qualified to represent yourself and your opinion. But really, those of us who have suffered this, we know what we're talking about. Now I
just want to say that I'm so scared to go out in the world next year because I was never a prejudiced person until I'm listening to you. It's really scary hearing what you're saying. I'm very scared. You're not preaching.
My dear young lady, when you go out into the world, you're going to find a reality that you're going to have to deal with. Please don't live in a fantasy world created by television. There's a very real world out there.
I was raised to be white, black. I was raised to be equal to anyone. Listening to you, you are so prejudiced. I just can't believe it. I am shocked. You're scaring me.
Mr. Farrakhan, I sit here and I'm seething. The things that you're saying only divides us.
Well, what is it that he said that makes you angry?
I don't like what you say about Jews or any other people. These things that you... And when you look at us, you're not...
talking about Jews. He's talking about an abasement of their religion
Phil,
by some people.
excuse me. What you're doing is Just a moment. You have been sitting there for an hour and you've been snickering and sneering at us.
Yes.
We don't look at you that way. We're giving you the respect the full hour to listen. You're not Martin Luther King, who brought us together. I could listen to him forever, but you're dividing us.
Well, since I have 1 minute, I really thank you for the privilege of speaking to you and with you. I would hope that we as black people would come together and form a united front to deal with the problems that confront us. And then I would hope that whites would actually begin to know more about the condition that you are totally oblivious to. The Kerner report said that most whites know nothing really about what it is like to live in the ghetto.
Yes.
I would just like to say that I am terrified that even you, someone who's obviously educated, has given up hope completely. Like when you call upon us, you say white folk, you say black people, Jewish people. Why can't we come together? We obviously can come together. We just have to find a way to do it.
The desire is good, but the reality is the total opposite of your desire. And unfortunately, as a young lady, you are not in the position of power to make the decisions to make America work. May I, as an audience of intelligent people, I would like to just take a moment to say to you that I really don't think you fully understand what has happened to these people that you look at as second class or inferior citizens in this nation. Black people who were brought to this country were stripped of their names, language, culture, religion, God, and taken totally away from the history of themselves. Here are 30 million people who don't wear their own names. They wear your names. Who don't speak their own language. They speak English, which is not their language. They never were allowed their own cultural expression of Africa. Don't you realize that when you turn a people upside down and inside out, then sell them not for a day, not for a year, but for 300 years, and deny us the human right to know, to read a book, to learn, to understand, and then
after 300 years of that, you allow us into the church, but by that time, you've painted Jesus white, God white, the angels white, and then all these black people have been subjected to a form of white supremacy, which produces in the reverse a black inferiority. And this is fulfilling what Jesus said, as a man thinketh, so is he. And as long as our people think the way they think, we will never be able to do what we as a people should do to correct our condition.
Over here, please.
Several people in the audience have said the things that he's saying, but you really haven't been specific. What is he saying that you have a problem with? And why is it when a black man stands up to speak for his people and other people stand up to speak for their people, there's no problem with it? But you're saying he said black, he said Jew. When people talk, they talk like that. But why is it when a black man stands up to speak for his people, you feel so threatened, everybody's paranoid? And you talk about it's not segregation. We live in Harlem, we live in Watts, we live in Bedford-Stuyvesant. That's a form of segregation. We walk through Bensonhurst, we get killed. So what are you talking about?
Excuse me, I was brought up in, quote, Bedford-Stuyvesant in my time. But I would like to say what scares us is I think we hear violence.
May I respond? Yeah. May I respond, please? I'm sorry.
All right. Minister Farrakhan, would you explain why it is relevant at this stage in 1990, with all that we've gone through, why it is still relevant to try and to educate or to get white people to understand the plight of black people? Shouldn't the energy be directed to us?
Right on. If I may, my work is directly to black people. I spend 99% of my time dealing with us to help us reform our minds and spirit that we may do for ourselves. However, when you live in a society like this, and we know that in order to effect a solution to a problem between black and white, then there's going to have to be some meaningful dialogue between black and white in order to effect a solution. The young lady said she's afraid of violence. And isn't it sad that we who have been the victims of so much violence, now whites fear violence from us? We do not have a history of killing white people. White people have a history of killing us. See? And what you fear, may I say this, sir? What you fear, and it's a deep guilt thing that white folks suffer. You are afraid that if we ever come to power, we will do to you and your fathers what you and your people have done to us. And I think you are judging us by the state of your own mind, and that is not necessarily the mind of black people.
I'm with you in that you're talking about wanting to have meaningful dialogue, and that's a problem. You know, right away, I don't know what's going to make whites happy, for Pete's sake. You know, you're talking about trying to find a solution to your problem. You're trying hard to do that. And we're tuning you right out. We're arguing with you. We're not agreeing with anything. We're not trying to give you a chance. For Pete's sake, you know, what do we want?
Assalamu alaikum. Mr. Farrakhan, there's a situation now where 1 in 4 black males are in prison or in jail or in some type of probation situation, okay? When I look around, even myself being a black reporter, okay, and they talk about racism of a black and white person go to the job, a black person is going to get the job, I never find that out. And we're in New York City with a black mayor, and I still haven't seen it. And when I see Minister Farrakhan, not only the brothers enlighten me, but he gives me hope to not give up, not go get a pistol and stick somebody up, okay? So when I see you, not only are you the light and the hope, but I think, white America, you need to listen. And please don't harm this brother, because we love him.
Yeah, hang on a minute, yeah.
Getting back to what she said, what exactly do we have a problem with? Before you made a statement, you said that I think that, well, not I, you said that white people think that you're inferior to us. I don't believe that. I'm part of the youth of America. I am not prejudiced. I feel more prejudiced right now than I've ever felt. Not against black, I am not prejudiced against black people. Some of my best friends are black people. I am, what's the problem with that?
Yeah.
You let him speak, let me speak.
Yeah. You wanted to speak to this young woman?
No, I don't want to speak.
Who wants to talk to her? Yes.
No,
yes.
what do you mean you feel more prejudice right now?
Because the way he's saying...
Because what?
What he's saying right now, I mean, I feel that you are prejudiced towards white people.
Excuse me. I think it's like he said, it might be a fear or misunderstanding that you have, because what fear has he put, or what has he actually said here today that makes you feel prejudiced?
I think that he said that we think that they're inferior. I think it's partly part of your own complex that you have to get over, because I don't feel you're inferior. I have nothing against black people.
It becomes apparent more and more as we listen to each other and try to talk to each other that we don't perceive reality the same. And as we're talking about either reconciling differences or separating, it becomes clear that if two people are looking at the same thing and perceiving it so differently, then the two people are operating under a different stimulus. And so when the young lady says, I am prejudiced, to be prejudiced means to judge before the fact. After 400 years of living and experiencing, we're not prejudiced. We are looking at the reality of what we have suffered and continue to suffer.
Are you there?
Yeah.
Are you there, caller?
Yes.
Thank you for waiting. I'm sorry it took us a while to get you, but go ahead. I know you'll be brief.
I'm a white American born into poverty, and I overcame it. You know, the opportunities are here in America, and why can't we just start now? We hear all this violence. Why can't we just talk in a positive way and go forward instead of remembering all these things that are in the past that are negative? They were not good for blacks, not for white
According
yes, Minister Farrakhan commenting.
According to the State of Black America by the Urban League, if we started right now, they said, we could never close the gap to black poverty and white poverty. She said, let us start right now. Let's forget the past. Notice this. When Jewish people remember the Holocaust and want the world to remember the Holocaust. Wait. Why do you want the world to remember? Because if the world does not remember, it is likely to repeat itself. And Jewish persons who suffered from the Holocaust want the world to remember this because the world turned its back while Jews were put in ovens. I, as a black person, want my people to remember what we have suffered and what we continue to suffer, so that we will say like the Jews, never again. Never again.
Okay, I've been listening in this corner right here, and I've heard a whole lot of negative things from the white people here. When you are trying to explain yourself, the white people don't want to hear you explain yourself. They drown you out. They start already trying to drown you out and talk over you. There's a certain amount of white arrogance here, and they don't want to listen to what black people are saying. They don't understand because they don't want to understand. I've heard a woman here say, go back to Africa. Somebody said, we have a black holiday. What does that mean? So what does that mean? He did not say that. He said, if we have a choice, what some of us can go and some of us can stay. But there's no understanding in here. People are just trying to talk.
To those arrogant persons, you know, when you tell us go back, please remember where you came from. And when you want to relegate somebody to a specific place, just remember what your origin is in this world. Please, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. But I want you to understand that you, wherever you are on the earth, you're not a native anywhere. You came there and took it from the native people who are there. So please don't talk about going back, because if others talk to you about that, where would you go?
I agree with you. I agree with you. Someone said we don't agree with you. I agree with you that we live in a racist society. But just as I'm racist, some of you are being racist in the fact that you're calling me a white folk. I realize that things that I have, things that I have, I realize most of them I may have gotten because I'm white, and I am privileged because I'm white. But I do feel guilty. There are feelings of guilt from being white, and I realize that. But you're building walls. We build walls this high. We're separated right now. The white people are on this side, and the black people are on that side. All right. I'm not. My road's not separated.
Who's
I don't know what I want to say. I forget what I want to say.
Yes. Yeah. Let me get this young woman here.
She said we're separated by seating.
She says what?
We did not seat ourselves, okay? So don't get that impression we wanted a blacks here and you over there, whatever, okay? No, I just wanted to say that because she made the point.
Ourselves. You know, it happens.
Right.
It happens at high school cafeterias. It happens all over the place.
Phil told us to sit over here.
Yeah. Not the cheap seats. Sir.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
I'd like to say that I've written a book about black soldiers in the Civil War. Many black people have come to me and said constantly that they had no idea that there were black soldiers in the Civil War. Obviously, there are white people who don't know this. Don't we need to begin with education, begin with rewriting the textbooks in America to tell the truth about blacks and whites in America in context?
Yes. Yes. Please, please, for 1 second. Yes.
That's what I wanted to, Minister Farrakhan, the education system. Our children right now are being miseducated. What can we do so that we can inform our children, educate our children? And it's sad because white folks don't know anything about black history. And they have done that purposely. And I am saying that in May, I go down to Beaufort. And when you're in South Carolina, the whole history of black Africans is there. And it's pathetic that white folks have to wait till February to find out that we were slaves. I would like us to speak to what are we going to do to improve the education of this whole society, which have cheated them from our true heritage.
May I respond? I said in the first segment it was a crime of omission as well as a crime of commission. And that crime has affected both white and black. White folk have been made to believe that the history of civilization begins in Egypt and that Egypt was a white civilization. And that many whites have been made to believe that black folk were just in the jungles of Africa running around with no clothes on and never contributed anything to the advancement of civilization, while at the same time there are masons and shriners. Some of your parents are shriners and masons, and they put on the fez of the Muslim people, and what they're studying is the true history of the black people of this earth. I think if the proper education were given to black and white, we could come away with a healthy respect one for the other. I want to clear this, that I don't think black people disrespect the tremendous accomplishments that white folk have made. But if white folk do not know what black people have contributed to the advancement of civilization, it leads to a disrespect of a whole segment of the population. And this is why today I will say that black children, as much as we need education, we don't want to go to these schools because the food that we are being fed is not proper. But any one of us can go into the schools where there's no discipline, where there's madness in the corridors, and we can speak to our youth and get their attention in a matter of moments because we are teaching them that which their souls yearn for, that is a proper knowledge of self. And if they won't give it to us, we have the responsibility to give it to ourselves.
Mr. Farrakhan, I have actually two questions. One, the direction that you're pursuing seems to be a complete reversal from the direction that Martin Luther King was going into, which is total integration. You seem to be wanting to pull your people apart into a more segregated but equal situation. Can you draw any parallels between yourself and he and the end result that you're looking for? Yes. And how would you address some of the educated, upper-class blacks who are sending their children off to college now and are distressed that they're coming back too black? And I had said, what do you mean? My question to them was, what do you mean by too black? How can your children be too black? And they say there's a militant air that's coming home and an angriness and an aggressiveness that they've spent years trying to quell. These children are wealthy children going to excellent colleges. Their parents are upper class, and they're concerned and distressed.
Thank you. First, I appreciate the manner and the spirit of your question. Dr. Martin Luther King, of course, was a giant among us. Dr. Martin Luther King was a humanist as well as a deep religious thinker who hoped and believed and worked for the coming together of people. I don't think that Dr. King was in error to work what his heart commanded him to do. But while Dr. King was doing that, would you believe that the United States government, under the counterintelligence program of J. Edgar Hoover, was plotting all the while against Dr. King to discredit him, to keep him from getting the Nobel Peace Prize? When he went to meet with the Pope, the FBI tried to interfere with Dr. King's meeting with the Pope, thinking that if the Pope met with Dr. King, it would give him too much credibility. Dr. King, in 1968, lost his life because he felt that poverty in America was so pervasive, not only among blacks, but whites. And even though Lyndon Baines Johnson was the one that was the architect of the war on poverty and commissioned the Kerner Commission, Mr. Johnson became so obsessed with winning the war in Vietnam, he took money away from dealing with the problems of America, sending that money into Vietnam in a cause that America lost. And when Dr. Martin Luther King spoke openly, honestly, against the war in Vietnam, you know the rest. The man was assassinated. And now America, 20 years after Dr. King, is further apart. Even though there's a bigger middle class, the poor are getting poorer, and the system that you call economic, political, and religious system keeps pressing the poor down to the point where you have millions of black people who are useless to themselves and to this nation.
I would just like to say, Minister Farrakhan, that all that you have done for the black community and as well as educating the white, that in the white community there is hundreds and thousands of Farrakhans. I mean, your mentality, how you think, the uplifting of your people. But in the black community, there's a few Farrakhans. It's not enough of us that is helping to take up the burden of our people. It is our responsibility. It's not white folks' responsibility to deal with the illness of our people. Those who feel that they want to help us, fine, well as can be. God will bless them. But it's our responsibility. And it's not enough of us who are helping to uplift our people. We are catching hell. Certainly if you are a people that is always begging, you're not going out to help brothers like Farrakhan and brothers that's following. Look at the Muslims. Look how clean they look.
Look at our right to look. They're not eating bad food. They're not drinking. They're not running after women or running after men, as Minister Farrakhan has said. So we should be men enough and women enough to do, because you're only on this planet for a short while, white and black. So we should pull our resources together and think intelligently enough to say that whatever affect one, affect all of us indirectly. Because when you have AIDS, AIDS don't have no privilege of, well, we're just going to deal with black folks. AIDS deal with everybody, Indians, Chinese, Italian, everybody. So you should think about what this black man is saying.
Let me have the mic.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd just like to say I think you should be thanking God that you live in this country instead of wanting to take your people and moving to another country with all the opportunities that you have here.
Yes. I think we've missed the point here. We've talked about racism. There is no racism in this heart. What we have missed the point on is your children and our children are in jail and are on drugs because of drugs. We need to talk about how to get our children off of drugs.
Uniting against the common enemy.
Absolutely. We need to unite. When we get our children off of drugs, I think our children will be talking together, and your 600,000 young men will not be in jail any longer.
Yeah, well, of course, the Muslims went into a section of Washington that actually had become an open-air drug market. And by the grace of God, these young men took over that section, which housed 9,000 human beings. And within a month, there were no drugs sold in that area, and the Muslims have held that area for 2 years, relatively drug-free and crime-free, with no help from the government and very little help from others. We've done it with a word. If you could just calm the emotion, the fears, and listen to a word that can uplift not only black, but it can uplift your people as well, maybe we could solve the drug problem in the United States.
Sir. I'd just like to point out to the lady who had said about blacks returning to black. I'm one of those people who went to a white Catholic Jesuit college. And I had that fear when I went away also of coming back to New York City. I saw the media, I saw blacks killing, I saw blacks doing all kind of stuff that just wasn't pleasing to my eye. But when I got back here, when I went back into Harlem, I saw the reason for some of that. I saw how the media took certain things out of context. A lot of whites are talking about fear. The fear is not black itself, it's not black people, it's the fear that you see. There's nothing to fear at all. A lot of people are not going to Harlem, they're not going to the ghettos because they fear I don't know what. But the blacks are some of the most passive people you will come across. We have tolerated a lot, and we continue to. There's nothing to fear but fear itself.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I would just like to ask Minister Farrakhan if he could comment on the vast gulf in the understanding and the perception between blacks and whites. And what do you think is the next step to advance this dialogue that seems to have started?
The gulf is created by improper education, environment, and the stimulus that comes from improper education environment. If you just look at the Constitution of the United States as a legal document that called us 3/5 of a human after we were robbed of the knowledge of self, then you look at a religion, Christianity. I'm not saying the teachings of Jesus now, but I'm talking about the way Christianity has been used. I was talking to a Catholic priest a few weeks ago, telling him how black folk were taught that our blackness is something of a divine curse, that we are the children of Ham. And Ham was one of the sons of Noah who mocked Noah in his drunkenness, and Noah cursed him. Black folk think of themselves in a servitude posture. Black folk think of the color of their skin as a curse. They think of the texture of their hair as something terrible, the thickness of our lips or the shape of our noses. This is not because we desire to think this way, but we live in America where white standards of beauty have been imposed upon us. Now how do you break this? By telling the truth. The truth is, black people have a beauty that is ours. It is uniquely ours. You have your beauty as white people. As you learn to appreciate yourself and we learn to appreciate ourselves, then maybe we can appreciate one another. But truth has to be told. The truth is, according to your own scholars, your own scientists, Mendel said, black skin is dominant. White skin is recessive. Dark eyes are dominant. Light eyes are recessive. Mendel said you can get the recessive from the dominant, but you can't get the dominant from the recessive. That's Mendel. Dr. Leakey was looking for the origin of human beings. He went to Europe, but he didn't stay there long. He kept right on moving, and he found the origin of man in Africa. Now some of your scholars of genetics have taken the DNA and have traced the origin of human beings back to the black woman. Look, we are the father of all human beings. Tell it from the mountain, the black people are the original people of the earth. That doesn't make us better, but it says we are your father. We are your mother, and you should honor your father and mother that your days may be long.
And we'll be back in just a moment. We're back with the Reverend Minister Louis Farrakhan, who sounded awful close to William Shockley on the last answer.
But William Shockley was telling a falsehood while we are telling a manifest truth. And this truth, white people know. You scholars know it, but you've hidden it from black people and hidden it from your own people. So if you know that you come from us, then maybe you would respect your root a little better.
Yeah.
And if we knew that you came from us, maybe we would respect ourselves a lot better. So it works for both of us. It's good to know the truth. The truth will make you free.
Is it your feeling that AIDS is a manufactured disease which has hit in an especially horrendous way among people of color, among African Americans, engineered by a white person?
It is becoming increasingly clear in medical circles that the configuration of that virus is not a natural configuration, but that it is a made virus. Now, this should not come as a shock to you, because viruses have been used for years to get rid of unwanted and useless populations. I think General Amherst sent smallpox up in blankets to the Indians. And I think you will find that 100 black men in a Tuskegee experiment were injected with the most virulent form of syphilis and allowed to cohabit with whomsoever they would, and never were to be treated for syphilis. This is reality. Now, it was 400. Now we're looking at not only biological warfare, but we're looking at chemical warfare that is being used in crack cocaine and now in ice, being used on black and white. And I'm telling you, if America doesn't wake up, your country will be lost from within.
I'd just like to say that I have nothing against you or any of your brothers, or should I say puppets, that react this way. But Now, if you're talking about 1 in every 4 black men are in jail and everything, I mean, I think we should help ourselves, you know? I mean, if you want, we pull together and get out of this thing, out of, you know, how you think of blacks and how you think of whites. But, you know, God said all men are created equal, so why don't we feel that way?
Yeah. Why was it necessary to kind of insult the
way they act when we talk? When white people talk, they always act down the way white people talk.
Are you have a reserve religion in your own?
I'm Catholic.
You're Catholic. Would you call all the people who stand up at St. Patrick's Cathedral puppets of Cardinal O'Connor?
No.
Why not? Why not? He wants to know.
Why not?
I'm not.
It's
Why
not.
not? Just answer the question. Why not?
See, they see that as a double standard.
Yeah.
In other words, when a black person supports a black person,
No, but
they're
the way
puppets.
they're talking down to us.
Well, what did they say? What was said that bothered you the most? Let's talk about it.
No, the way they look
It's
at
the way
us.
they look at you. So it's not something. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
You want to talk to him? Yeah. Okay, hang on just a second.
I would like to know, excuse me, I'm speaking to you. Why is there such a problem when we speak to you about how we feel? Why is such a problem with that? Why you can't understand about how we feel? We have to deal with how you feel. We have to hear what you have to say about us, and we deal with it. How come you can't deal with it?
I can deal with it.
You can't deal with it. You're not dealing with it.
I can deal with it. I think we should get together, though.
Don't insult us then, okay? We don't insult you. Don't insult us, okay? Just don't insult us.
I don't think he meant to insult. Yeah.
Yes, he did. He did insult us.
Yeah.
By calling us puppets. We are no puppets. We are human beings. They Muslims. We are black people. You're white people. That's all to it. That's it.
See, this just carries on to what we say, okay? The fact that this white man can come out and call some people puppets. The only follow order functionaries in here is you and your people. Because if you had some conscience and some morality, you wouldn't kill black folks. A black kid wouldn't have to die in Bensonhurst or Howard Beach, okay? Because you would have said, well, I'm a man, I don't have to go with that group, okay? Because a man stands alone. Now, I call you attention. You say we're puppets. Why are they puppets, okay? I'm a black reporter. I'm no puppet. I call it for what it is, okay? I respect you.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing. If Gotti was sitting up there and he had his men around, Gotti. John Gotti. Okay? John Gotti. You wouldn't open your mouth up and say anything. You know what I'm saying? You wouldn't even break breath to say anything about Gotti men. You know? But you feel that these black men standing up here, you feel that you don't have to fear them.
Yeah.
I would like to ask if all of his followers agree with everything that he says, or if some of them think for themselves. That's what I want to know.
See, now, Miss, there are people in here. Would you talk to people who are not quote-unquote followers of Farrakhan and answer that lady's question?
Who are? He wants to know if everybody agrees with you. That was the question. Yes.
I'm a member of the Black Press. My name is Totley Brown. I work for National Black Network. I am not a follower of Minister Farrakhan, and I am tired. I am very tired of hearing you people talk to black people like we have feelings. Black people have feelings. We are tired of listening to the way you teach it, the way you want it, the way you deal with it. I have also worked for the white media. In the white media, I have heard them take out black stories. And I have said to them, why are you taking out a black story? I'd like to hear it. And their attitude was, well, there aren't enough people who want to hear it. Well, I do, and I know plenty of other people who want to, too.
Bill, one of the problems I have is, and I think most young people and elderly people have, is the concept of the basic bias. We recognize that there are millions and millions and millions of fine, beautiful, attractive black men in America throughout the world. Everybody will agree with that. But why should I pick up a magazine, a People magazine or something, and see Sean Connery as the sexiest man alive, John F. Kennedy Jr., the sexiest man alive? What happened to Denzel Washington? What happened to Minister Farrakhan? What happened to all of the brilliant men? Not on top of that, we talk about Elvis Presley gets his new show, but Little Richard is still alive on the planet Earth, rocking and rolling. So we're saying that the bottom line is that we don't get our full due as human beings. The bottom line is that America must begin to respect the contributions of African American men and women if we have survived the 21st century.
We agree. Can we wait just a little? 1 second. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Number one.
Just let this young woman make her point. Yes.
All right. Number one, it is an insult to ask who follows Minister Farrakhan. Okay? That is an insult. To you, it is relevant. To us, it is not. Okay? He is our leader. We are tired of you trying to pick our friends.
That's right.
We are tired of white people trying to say who our leaders should be. We will decide who our leaders will be, not you.
Yes.
Nobody, I resent that nobody called me to ask me what I felt about Reverend Sharpton. And we'll be back in just a moment. We're back with very little time. I know you'll be brief.
I just want to say this. Many of us are not in the Nation of Islam, but we're followers of Louis Farrakhan. Whites are telling us he's not like Dr. King. He's exactly like Dr. King. Dr. King fought for justice. If whites loved Dr. King, they should have kept Dr. King. They killed Dr. King. Dr. King today is Louis Farrakhan, fighting for justice and fighting for the rights of our people. For Christians and all of us, follow Louis Farrakhan.
Yes.
One person killed Dr. King. There's many of white people
that's true. You know, white people
want to like come together, and blacks and whites want to be together, and you're just
maybe you have an obligation to these folks, just as it was, I think, imprudent for us to suggest that you're puppets. It's similarly imprudent for you to suggest that white people killed Martin Luther King. Not a bad point.
not true.
Well,
hey,
I want to say.
Yes. Sir.
I'd like to say, just as it is imprudent to say that white people killed Martin Luther King, it is also imprudent to say that the Nation of Islam killed Malcolm X.
Right. But you go beyond that. You said white people killed Malcolm X.
I didn't say that. I said the government of the United States had a hand in the assassination of Malcolm X. We know it was black folk that pulled the trigger. We know that.
Right.
So, thank you for such a wonderful time with you. Thank you. I'd like to say we'd like to keep the door open to continue dialogue with blacks and Jews and blacks and whites and blacks and others, so that we can find the right solution to this problem.
And I know you join me in thanking Reverend Farrakhan.